I mean, I think it's kind of obvious people can not only see the emotion on your face, but hear it in your voice when you talk about this, Lee. Why?
I care. That's it. You can't let that happen to me. Let that happen to me.
All right, welcome to Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. I start the show with the obvious. Tick, 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 tick. Every day there's more devastating news. It's become fairly irrefutable. As you're gonna see, the Republicans are down to, he couldn't have done it because he's a dumbass.
Literally, that is an argument that's being made right now.
Yes, because that's the only thing they got left. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. We've got more devastating results from that. And then apparently Warren's the front runner because everyone's attacking him.
No, Cenk, what you don't know, because you haven't been here all week, is that there is a theme this week on the show, and hopefully it's a theme that continues. It's called Rich Men Cry. And it is now a branded segment on the Young Turks, okay? So get ready, we're gonna have fun today.
Okay, so that's awesome too. And then let me tell you guys, dramatic announcement coming up next week. Dramatic. So do not miss the show next week. I'm not sure if it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. As soon as I am sure, I will let you know. But a massive announcement. Okay. Hey Anna, what else is going on?
Hey, lots of exciting stuff. Just a programming note. Tomorrow we will have the man named after 2 universities on the program, Cal Penn. He's not actually named after 2 universities, but he is obviously an actor, and he did serve in Obama's administration. He will be joining us for the second hour of the main show, so please check us out on Friday, November 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific, and he will also have a conversation with Cenk on The Conversation.
Well, that makes sense. Did you ever see Harold and Kumar?
Yes.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll be
That's
fun.
when they go to White Castle, right?
They do indeed,
Right.
They do indeed. They do also do other stuff.
They do, yes.
Okay.
It's an adventure.
All right, what's next?
All right, lots of big news today. So, new reporting indicates that Donald Trump attempted to pressure his own Attorney General, William Barr, to hold a press conference where he would clear Donald Trump of any wrongdoing in his phone conversation with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Now, at this point, it's abundantly clear that that phone conversation with Zelensky was an issue. That was the phone call that led to an official whistleblower complaint. And in that phone call, Donald Trump asked Zelensky to dig up dirt on his political opponent, Joe Biden, and his son, Hunter Biden. So here's what we know so far about this new story. The request for the news conference came around sometime around September 25th, when the administration released a rough transcript of the president's July phone call with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. So there's this rough transcript, this memo essentially, and Donald Trump is thinking, all right, well, this is my perfect call. This is the memo of the so-called perfect call. Now all I need is my attorney general to do a press conference where he clears me of any wrongdoing. The request from Trump traveled from the president to other White House officials and eventually to the Justice Department. The president has mentioned Barr's demurral to associates in recent weeks, saying he wished Barr would have held the news conference, Trump advisors say. But Barr ultimately decided that he would not hold this press conference, and I think for obvious reasons.
Yeah, so let's just lay it out as clearly as we can. So when Trump says, hey, do the press conference telling everybody I'm not guilty, and Barr says no, that is dramatic, because here's Barr, who was picked to be Donald Trump's yes man, to say that he never commits any crimes, he has ultimate executive authority, and he believes that ideologically, and it has shown every kind of obedience to Donald Trump. In fact, after Robert Mueller released his report saying, look, there's not enough evidence of collusion, but there are 10 counts of obstruction, William Barr then did a press conference saying Robert Mueller completely cleared Donald Trump. That wasn't remotely true, he did it anyway. So this is a guy, the context is super important. This is a guy who was specifically picked to back Donald Trump under any and all circumstances, and has done so in the past. If he's not doing a news conference as Trump has directed him to do, clearing Donald Trump, that means he thinks I might go to prison if I stick my neck out and defend Trump on something that is indefensible.
Exactly, and William Barr didn't personally release a statement clearing Donald Trump or trying to defend Donald Trump. There was a generic statement from the Justice Department. As the rough transcript was released, a Justice Department spokeswoman said officials had evaluated it and the whistleblower complaint to see whether campaign finance laws had been broken, determined that none had been, and decided no further action was warranted. So this seems to be a little bit of a half measure from the Justice Department, but it wasn't what Donald Trump wanted. Donald Trump wanted this big public spectacle. He wanted William Barr to go out there, do a press conference, and clear him of any wrongdoing. Now, though the rough transcript shows Trump offering Zelensky the services of his attorney general to aid investigations of Biden and his son, a Barr spokeswoman said that Barr and Trump had never discussed that. So remember, Barr is mentioned in that transcript, like work with Barr. And now you have, not now, but like when this story first broke, the Justice Department had released a statement saying, oh, no, but Barr knows nothing about this. In fact, Carrie Kupek, who is a DOJ spokeswoman, says the president has not spoken with the attorney general about having Ukraine investigate anything relating to former Vice President Biden or his son. The president has not asked the attorney general to contact Ukraine on this or any other matter. The attorney general has not communicated with Ukraine on this or any other subject.
In other words, it wasn't us. It wasn't us. It's definitely not Barr. Barr had nothing to do with this, okay? Now, guys, think about it this way. If William Barr or any other part of the administration was involved in the al-Baghdadi raid, do you think they'd be in the witness protection program? Or do you think they'd be in front of cameras going, oh yeah, I was there, man. Man, look, I don't know that they could have done the raid without me, right? They'd be, if it was something positive, in other words, they'd jump all over it. And as Barr has shown in the past, even if it's something really deeply negative, he thinks if he's got just a tiny little leg to stand on, he'll jump out there in front of all the cameras and go, Trump is innocent, Trump is innocent, right? In this case, they put out that little memo saying, well, I mean, on the campaign finance reform issue, we don't think you violated any laws. Now, Barr didn't sign it, so he has plausible deniability, right? And then you ask them, did you guys do a real investigation? They're like, no, we looked at the rough transcript and thought that was good enough. Well, wouldn't you want the whole transcript if you were doing a real investigation? You could just ask the White House, your Department of Justice. Oh, you didn't ask for it. You didn't ask to talk to anyone else on the call. Obviously not a real investigation. It was a half measure so that Donald Trump didn't blow his top.
Right.
But Barr's like, this is nuclear and I don't want to touch it. That's how bad this is. And now finally, the coup de grace. So you just heard Anna read the statement about from the DOJ saying Barr ain't got nothing to do with Ukraine. I never talked to Ukraine. I never talked to the president about Ukraine. No, right? No. So then Trump says, Bill Barr did not decline my request to talk about Ukraine.
Love it. Love it.
Elbow from the sky. So now, you see, he's such a dumbass. Then you're gonna get asked, and your attorney general is gonna get asked, but he says he didn't talk to you. You're saying that you did talk to him and tell him to go make that request of the Ukraine, and that he did not deny that request. So you're disagreeing with your own attorney general in 3 different ways in that one simple statement. So don't you see how that's gonna create a political mess for you? Because now we're gonna go back to the attorney general and ask, hey, the president says you guys did talk and that you were part of pressuring Ukraine.
No, I love it. I love that it's gonna create a political mess for both parties. I love the fact that Donald Trump not only incriminates himself, he incriminates the people around him. And remember, William Barr, his whole ideology about the executive branch and the president specifically is, in my opinion, unconstitutional. He believes the executive branch has almost unlimited power, right? And so he went to do a press conference to defend Donald Trump in regard to the Mueller report. And what he said about the Mueller report was so problematic and so false that it led to Mueller writing him a letter to say, yo, homeboy, you're totally mischaracterizing what I said in my report. This is ridiculous. Not in so many words, but you get what I mean.
Really?
Yeah.
Mueller didn't say, yo, homeboy.
No, didn't say that, didn't say that. But that's what was implied. And in this case, again, as Cenk said, and you're absolutely right, this is so nuclear that William Barr is like, I'm gonna go over there.
Look, Giuliani might at some point be arrested. And Giuliani's putting out tweets talking about how, it wasn't the US government that I was working for, it was Donald Trump personally. Oh no, why are you admitting that in a tweet? This is Dumb and Dumber, right? So what that means is, when we asked for a quid pro quo, it was not on behalf of America, it was on behalf of Donald Trump. Well, that's the biggest violation of your oath that you could possibly have as president, where you say, I don't care about the American people, I don't care about their national security, I'm gonna hold up this aid that would help American national security for a personal favor against my political opponent. Giuliani, his own lawyer, basically just admitted guilt in that tweet. They're so dumb. All attorneys responding are like, what are you doing? Go get counsel. Giuliani should have a lawyer telling him not to tweet. You just admitted a crime.
So let me actually elaborate a little more on that. Giuliani actually had a difficult time finding lawyers who were willing to represent him.
Who could blame them?
Now he finally did find some counsel, and he's ecstatic about that. But I also want to note, Giuliani was regularly going on cable television, giving all sorts of crazy interviews that made him and Donald Trump look incredibly bad in this case. And I've noticed that lately he's been staying away from television.
Well, if he got an attorney, his first job as Giuliani's attorney would be to lock him in a basement.
Definitely.
And take his phone away and make sure no cameras are allowed in. And then finally, Bolton now is apparently going to testify.
Delicious.
Now remember, Bolton is pissed because Trump basically fired him. Bolton is a neocon.
He's a terrible person.
Right winger. No, meaning like he ain't no soft Democrat, right? If he wants to kneecap Trump, he'll kneecap Trump and he won't hesitate, right? And then third of all, he's the guy who stopped Sondland and Volker and all those guys when they were talking to Ukrainians and saying, hey, you got to investigate the president's political opponent. And even Bolton was like, no, meeting over. And then pulled him aside saying, what are you doing? No, we can't do that on behalf of the president. So we already know because of the other testimony that Bolton was definitely opposed to this illegal act. So in the only like positive maneuver of his life, right?
Right.
If he goes to go testify about that, look guys, I mean, tick, 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 tick. There's no way out here. He definitely did it. He did both crimes. He asked for help in a political campaign, already a crime, and he did the quid pro quo. With the Sondland revised testimony saying, yes, it was definitely a quid pro quo, this thing is over. So the only way that he could escape now is the Democrats somehow in an epic bungle. So that's the only reason why it's not really over, because that's always possible.
All right, well, let's move on to a pretty giant story regarding Zelensky and whether or not he knew there was a quid pro quo in play. Republican defenders of Donald Trump keep arguing that there's no way there was quid pro quo because in order for a quid pro quo to occur, Vladimir Zelensky needed to know and understand that Donald Trump's intentions were to dig up political dirt on his political rival in order to release military funding that Ukraine desperately needed. Now we have an abundance of evidence indicating that the Ukrainian government absolutely did know there was a quid pro quo in play. So this is new reporting by the New York Times. In a flurry of WhatsApp messages and meetings in Ukraine's capital, Kiev, over several days, senior aides debated the point. Avoiding partisan politics in the United States had always been the first rule of Ukrainian foreign policy, but the military aid was vital to the war against Russian-backed separatist forces in eastern Ukraine, a conflict that has cost 13,000 lives since it began in 2014. So internally in Ukraine, government officials were debating what they needed to do to move forward. What was the best choice? Because on one hand, they understood that it would be disastrous to get involved in domestic politics in the United States, but they also understood that if they didn't play ball with Trump and they didn't get that $400 million in military aid, the country's future was in jeopardy because of aggression by the Russian government. So Zelensky's staff actually ultimately decided that they had no choice but to comply with Donald Trump's demands. Aides were arguing in favor of bowing to what was demanded. They were willing to do so despite the risk of losing partisan support in the United States by appearing to assist Trump's re-election bid. The cost was high, and that's a statement by Petro Burkovsky, who actually is very close to the Ukrainian government and has some insight into the dealings that were happening. A tug of war ensued between a senior aide to Zelensky, Andrei Yermak, and another of Trump's envoys to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, over the wording of the proposed public statement. Volker went so far as to draft a statement for Zelensky that mentioned both investigations. And the two investigations, of course, were one, the investigation into the Bidens, and two, the investigation into Ukrainian meddling into the US elections. That's a conspiracy theory that Donald Trump has really latched onto. Drums.
Yes, indeed. Look, guys, this was, again, one of the last threads that they had, the Republicans. Well, look, Zelensky said once in public that there was no pressure, so Trump must be innocent. Well, now internal reporting shows that Zelensky absolutely was pressured, knew he was being pressured, was about to go on CNN and say, yes, we will investigate the Bidens until Congress got mad. We'll get to that in a second, right? And in fact, our own diplomats wrote out a statement for him saying, here it is, you must say that Donald Trump's political opponent is being investigated by your government. There is absolutely no question in the real world. I mean, cable news can have a conversation about real world versus bizarro world. But on this planet, there's absolutely no question that they pressured and that there was a quid pro quo and the Ukrainians knew it.
So Kurt Volker, who is a US official, is writing this statement for Zelensky, right? And Yermak, who is the aide for Zelensky, starts to push back and he's like, okay, look, we really need to consider the ramifications in the future. And so Yermak pushed back, suggesting language that mentioned investigations, but in general terms, so as not to antagonize the Democrats. So look, they're thinking ahead in the future. What if the Democrats are in charge in the future and we're antagonizing them through this statement that Volker has prepared for us? We really need to be cautious moving forward. But again, this is further proof that shows there was a quid pro quo. The Ukrainian officials were debating about what to do, what the next steps needed to be. And also, even as Yermak negotiated the wording in August, the stakes were clear. While rumors had been swirling for months about a possible hold on military aid, by early August, high-level Ukrainian officials had confirmed the freeze. So again, every time you hear the nonsense talking point from Republican lawmakers who are looking to get reelected, and they say things like, "Oh, well, you can't have a quid pro quo without a quo." There was a quo. It's obvious. It's clear. They absolutely knew what was going on. They knew that that money was being dangled in front of them, and they wouldn't get it unless they made this public statement about an investigation into the Bidens. Now, where were they supposed to make this announcement? On Fareed Zakaria's show on CNN. That's what Trump wanted.
Yeah, and as it turns out, they got lucky because he was booked. He was definitely going to do it. And
on September 13th.
Yes, and then Congress stepped in and said, what are you doing? Because they got wind of the fact that the aid that they had authorized was being held up. Like, you can't hold up that aid. It's already authorized. Give us a reason why you're holding it up. And the White House is like, I don't know, against corruption in Ukraine. They're like, no. Release the aid. So the aid gets released. Zelensky immediately cancels his appearance on Fareed Zakaria. Why? Because now he doesn't have to say things that aren't true. He doesn't have to say that he's investigating Biden and get involved in American politics. Look, guys, this is Trump calls it anti-corruption when he goes after the Bidens. I know, hilarious, right? But remember Sondland's testimony from just a couple of days ago. This is the end. There's no question about it. He said, quote, I said that the resumption of the US aid would likely not occur until Ukraine provided the public anti-corruption statement that we had been discussing for many weeks. End of this. Okay, over. OVAH. Definitely quid pro quo, no doubt about it. And by the way, I'll go further. Anyone arguing the opposite is an obvious liar. They're biased, they have a political agenda, and they are desperately trying to cover up the reality. But anyone who can read can tell that this is clearly the case, no question about it.
We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we are gonna show you some of these lame defenses, including one Republican lawmaker arguing that Donald Trump is just simply too stupid to do a quid pro quo.
Well, at least they got a shot there. Okay, we'll talk about it when we come back. I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in there.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years,
right,
believing that it was actual berries. Yeah, she's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you, Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you gotta force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Cenk Uygur joins us.
We are progressive and unapologetically so. Very happy to say that millennial and Gen Z generations are massively progressive along with us.
Democrats, they've been so weak for so long. For God's sake, fight for your side.
I would not like to compromise with Republicans. I would like to defeat them. Lynn, do you support Donald Trump?
Yes, I like Donald Trump.
Well, that's why we think you're racist. The 5 black kids in Central Park did not commit the rape. He said, who cares? Keep him in prison anyway. They probably did something. He's a terrible guy. Very fine people on the side chanting, Jews will not replace us. He says we should ban all Muslims. Well, that's bigotry by definition. He said it during the campaign trail over and over again. Called Latinos criminals and rapists. See, you're used to Republicans being strong on television and Democrats cowering. New day in America. Progressives, we actually fight back.
Back on the Young Turks. Comments. Ajibra writes in, the reason why Bill Barr refused Trump's request to clear him, Barr read the transcript, y'all. He read the transcript, and he doesn't know what other shoe may drop.
Yep.
So remember, the real transcript's hidden away in the secret server. So, and there's a bunch of stuff that's missing from the one that's public. So, and remember, I'm being the fairest man in America. Before I left, I had said that, hey, look, there was people who saw, like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who heard the call, and who in his testimony, I had said at the time, did not say that there was anything missing from the call. Later, he came back and said, yeah, there were things missing. So, what does Barr know that we don't know? Good point, guys. Mark Antonio says, Cenk is the best, Cenk haters are the worst. Damn right. Okay, I like this Mark guy. Okay, lots where that came from, which is nice, so I'll read them. Adelancia says, welcome back to Cenk. Not that we didn't enjoy Anna and the guests on Monday through Wednesday, just loving on all TYT. Thank you.
I'm into that. I'm into that.
Definitely. Top Cat says, glad Cenk is back. Hubby has been asking all week, what is Cenk saying? I had to keep checking to make sure Cenk hadn't done any quick videos. Now, normally when I'm away in New York or other trips, I will do some live videos for you guys that you can get on TYT.com and on YouTube.com/TYT. In this case, I was super busy with business stuff, but I have very interesting, fun stories about that in the postgame, okay? What does New York, the powerful folks in New York, and I was with some powerful folks in New York, I'll tell you in the postgame, okay? I can't say what they said because it's off the record, but I can give you a general sense of it. What do they think of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders?
I mean, I think we know. We've been covering it all week.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but interesting stuff, okay? That's why I love these trees.
I ruined your tease for the post game. You're right, it is interesting. It's gonna be good, it's gonna be good.
No, you know generally, but
yeah. You have some specifics.
Yeah, I learned some things where I was like, oh wow. Okay, anyway, post game, tyt.com/join to become a member and get your comments read and get the post game. Last one, Pedro, not Pedro, right? Sorry. I love the TYT membership because I know my funds only go to them. It was the best call I ever made. It was the perfect call, perfect quid pro quo. There you go, Pedro. Okay, so thank you guys. Again, tyt.com/join.
You can also make some good calls when it comes to how you make your own money grow and work for you. So we've partnered up with Doe. It is this company that helps to direct you in the right direction if you're looking to invest your money. Now, investing money is incredibly complicated and scary for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be. Doe will help you by asking you questions about your passions and your interests, and then they'll give you suggestions in terms of where you can invest your money. So if you're interested, go to doe.com/TYT and download that app today. It's super helpful. All right, let's move on to more impeachment-related news. Republican lawmakers like Lindsey Graham are scrambling for any defense they can come up with in the impeachment investigation. Now, as we all know, there's more and more evidence every day that shows that Donald Trump was in fact withholding military aid and a meeting in the White House from Ukraine on the condition of an announcement of an investigation into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Now, Lindsey Graham doesn't know what to do with all this evidence, doesn't know how to defend Donald Trump, so he's scraping the bottom of the barrel. And here's an example of him putting out an insane conspiracy theory about EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland.
Bill Taylor, what does he base his belief that there's a quid pro quo on? What is the factual basis? A conversation with Sunderland. Now, here's a question. Why did Sunderland change his testimony? Was there a connection between Sunderland and Democratic operatives on the committee? Did he talk to Schiff? Did he talk to Schiff staffers? I've been a lawyer for a very long time. When somebody changes their testimony, they suddenly recall something they didn't know before. It makes me incredibly suspicious.
So he's referring to EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland in that video clip. Sunderland is not an individual who exists at all. I don't know where that came from. But what he's referring to is the fact that Gordon Sondland did revise his testimony because he had said that he did not recall a quid pro quo. But there were so many other Trump administration officials who had testified that not only was there quid pro quo, but that Gordon Sondland was involved in communicating that quid pro quo. So that's perjury, the fact that he wasn't upfront and honest during his testimony, and so he had to revise his testimonies. And he said, "quote I said the resumption of the U.S. aid would likely not occur until Ukraine provided the public anti-corruption statement that we had been discussing for many weeks." That was his revised testimony. So now you have Lindsey Graham putting out all sorts of ridiculous conspiracy theories. I've heard statements about how he's a never Trumper. This guy donated $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration. He was not a never Trumper.
No, I mean, we have these conversations with people who are on a different planet. So I don't know how to argue with them. They're like, Sondland gave $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration. They're like, yeah, never Trumper. Okay, I mean, what do you do with that, right? I think Trump is a human being. They're like, no, he's an interplanetary dog who is going to save the entire planet. His code name is Lassie. Okay, I don't know how to respond to that. I don't. The Sondland's obviously, he gave $1 million to Trump so he could then come in and then do quid pro quo and break the law with Trump and help him do that. But once discovered, said, "Ha, it's a Democrat all along." What?
They will turn on you in a heartbeat. Like it's incredible. I mean, Sondland donated $1 million. That was $1 million of his own money. Can you imagine donating $1 million just so you can get caught up in a crime like this?
Well, I love that part. Look, the reality is he's a Trump lackey, and this is part of the swamp. This is the corruption. So he has no diplomatic experience at all. And Trump's like, "Oh, you gave me $1 million for my inauguration," which, by the way, a lot of that money was funneled to interesting sources that folks who work with Melania Trump. That's a separate story, right? So everybody gets rich off of guys like Sondland. So Trump's like, "Oh, what do you need? Oh, you want to be ambassador? Great. And by the way, since you're my boy and you gave me $1 million and I can trust you, here, break the law with me." And Sondland's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll break the law. Oops, we got caught." And then they're like, "I knew it, never Trumper, interplanetary dog, whatever." How do you have a conversation with people who don't care about facts?
Right, and Sondland really had no choice but to revise his testimony. I mean, you had Bill Taylor, that is the US ambassador, confirming that there was quid pro quo. You had Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who also said that there was quid pro quo and it implicated Gordon Sondland. You had Marie Yovanovitch, who had some damning testimony as well. So he was in trouble, and he realized, oh, I better be upfront and honest now, or else the consequences could get much worse. Now, Graham has one other line of defense for Donald Trump, and this is my personal favorite because he could actually have a case here. Take a look.
What I can tell you about the Trump policy toward the Ukraine, it was incoherent. It depends on who you talk to. They seem to be incapable of forming a quid pro quo. So no, I find the whole process to be a sham, and I'm not going to legitimize it.
In other words, Donald Trump is too stupid to do a quid pro quo. That is his defense.
So Donald Trump almost accidentally proves him right. Because if you remember, a couple of days ago, Donald Trump said, if I wanted to do a quid pro quo, I'm definitely smart enough to do it. What are you doing? What are you doing? God, oh my God, you're so dumb. Okay, and the Washington Post broke the story today about how, in fact, William Barr did not want to do a press conference for Donald Trump, saying that he was innocent. So it's interesting that he didn't want to do that. So, and Barr said, hey, listen, man, Trump never asked me to do that press conference. I didn't even talk to Trump about Ukraine. Trump jumps out and goes, I did tell Barr to talk to Ukraine, and he wouldn't deny me saying go talk to Ukraine. Well, why did you just admit that?
It's amazing.
So that's why that's even his top ally in the Senate now, Lindsey Graham, is like, well, you got to remember the president's a moron. Even if he wanted to do quid pro quo, he doesn't know how to do it. Dumb as a brick, and totally incompetent.
It is also interesting how, first off, Lindsey Graham has said that he refuses to read any of the transcripts that are now being made public by congressional committees. These are the transcripts that have testimony by current and former Trump White House officials. He doesn't want to read it, okay? And then he keeps referring to Gordon Sondland as Sunderland. And then he turns around and says other people are stupid. Which I think is interesting.
I wonder if people hanging out with Trump get stupid by osmosis. Because Rudy Giuliani clearly lost his mind, right? Now it's beginning to seep into Lindsey Graham. You notice that little Band-Aid there?
Yeah, did they like inject something into his head?
They're like, no, Lindsey, it's okay. Yeah, no, you're right. Oh, best defense is that Trump is too stupid. Right. Anyway, seriously, Trump's not gonna like this. I bet you that.
I love it, yes.
Yeah, I bet you he reiterates that he is smart enough to be a criminal. And so then Lindsey Graham's gonna have to come up with a new excuse. God, I don't envy them. In fact, I'm having a great time watching them flail like this.
It's so good.
Tick, 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 tick.
So I'm not afraid to admit that I love drams. So I'm gonna enjoy talking about this next story just as much as the previous stories we've talked about. Donald Trump is refusing to back his former attorney general in his Senate run in Alabama, which means we're due for another episode of As the White House Turns.
Made some very big mistakes.
I asked for his resignation.
I'm disappointed in the attorney general.
Donald Trump was in fact disappointed by his former Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Now, Jeff Sessions was a senator in Alabama for 2 decades, and then he decided to leave his post in order to serve as Donald Trump's Attorney General. He recused himself from the Mueller investigation, and then Donald Trump berated him over and over and over again publicly. Now he wants to run for the seat that he left behind, and that is the seat that's currently being filled by Democrat Doug Jones. Now, Trump has discussed attacking Sessions with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. And McConnell has shared that he also has concerns about Sessions running because it could create a messy primary contest for a seat Republicans feel they have to win. In fact, a GOP donor by the name of Dan Eberhardt says, this is a nightmare for DC Republicans that just want to defeat Doug Jones. This is going to tie Trump and McConnell in knots, which is why I love this story so much. Now, this is really the ultimate test to see how much sway and how much influence someone like Donald Trump has in a state like Alabama. As we know, voters in Alabama do like Trump. They favor Trump. However, they also really supported and enjoyed the leadership of Jeff Sessions when he was a senator. And so now the question is, are they going to go with someone they know, Jeff Sessions, who served them for 2 decades? Or is their love and affection and zealous admiration for Donald Trump going to trump their admiration for Jeff Sessions? I guess we'll see.
Right, so now there's a bunch of great drama and quotes here that I love. So Richard Shelby is the other senator from Alabama. He's a Republican. He talked to Trump a couple months ago about the possibility of Sessions running. And he said, quote, he was not exactly on board. How's that for a great understatement? So fear not if you're a Trump supporter in Alabama. There is one person running who is a total kiss ass. And he'll do anything that Trump asks, and he'll lick any boot that Trump has. So it's the guy, Representative Bradley Byrne. And in fact, he took a veiled shot at, not so veiled shot, at Jeff Sessions. He said, I won't sit back and watch them destroy our country. What, destroying it how? Well, you guys are in charge. Anyway, here's the important part. Alabama deserves a senator who will stand with the president and won't run away and hide from the fight. Okay, so in other words, since you didn't cover up his crimes, you ran away and hid from the fight.
Right.
And me, I'll stand with the president even if he shoots someone on Fifth Avenue. Well, what do you think, I have principles? So of course he's leading in the race.
Yeah, he is leading in the race. So look, we'll see how this plays out. But I have noticed that Jeff Sessions has refused to attack Donald Trump, right? And even Mike Pompeo, who's currently serving in the Trump administration, is eyeing a Senate run in the future, which is why he is in this like really difficult situation. Donald Trump is becoming more and more implicated in this impeachment investigation. There's more evidence coming out against him. And Pompeo is in this difficult position where he can't really defend the substance, defend Trump on the substance of the investigation, but at the same time, he can't really turn on Trump because it hurts his chances when he seeks to run in the Senate in the future. I mean, it's insane.
So let's get more into the mess of the Alabama seat when it comes to the Republican side. Why does McConnell not want Jeff Sessions? He liked Jeff Sessions. I'm positive that he likes Jeff Sessions way more than he likes Donald Trump. But number one, he's gonna have a giant mess within the Republican Party if Sessions runs, because he knows the president's gonna attack him nonstop, because he can't help himself. He was disloyal to me. He was loyal to the law. I don't like that. Maybe there should be a law against that. Anyway, so that's one angle. The other is he's like, I got a perfectly good corrupt guy in Bradley Byrne, and he'll come in and he'll do whatever the donors want. So just stop like messing this election up, because there's a lot of people in. There's Tommy Tuberville, who used to be the coach of Auburn, and he's ranking number 2 right now, but Roy Moore's still in there. So the guy who was disgraced and lost to Doug Jones last time around, he's back for more. And so he's trying to grab at everything he can get his hands on, as usual. So now one of the things McConnell's worried about is, oh my God, if in this mess, Byrne and Tuberville and Sessions split up the vote, the lunatics that love Roy Moore, the fundamentalists, in other words, the Republican base, they might just stick with Roy Moore enough for him to win the primary. And then here you go again with the guy who, allegedly molested kids against Doug Jones. That's how they lost last time. So McConnell's like, no. Just so, final great quote is from Jeff Sessions himself. He was at Northwestern earlier in the week. As Anna pointed out, he has been very reluctant to talk about what happened in the Trump administration for understandable reasons. But he did say this snarky quote. He said, I never watched Trump's program on TV. I didn't know how many people he'd fired. Maybe I'd have been more careful. the president is allowed to fire you, but fortunately, he doesn't get to shoot you. So apparently that was on the board.
Jeez. Well, I mean, that's not surprising because as I mentioned earlier, Trump was pretty vicious towards Sessions and he was vicious publicly. In fact, we have one of our famous JR rated mashups for you.
Okay, hold, before you go to it, remember, Jeff Sessions was the first senator to back Donald Trump. He took a lot of political risks to say, I'm with Donald Trump. Trump returned that favor by making him attorney general, assuming that he would cover up for his crimes. When Sessions didn't cover up for the crimes, he's like, well, I don't get it. I thought we're criminal partners, right? And that's what drove him to such anger. But remember, he's going after the guy who stuck his neck out to support him when no one else would.
I would say if I had one do-over, it would be I would not have appointed Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General. Even my enemies say that Jeff Sessions should have told you that he was going to recuse himself, and then you wouldn't have put him in. He should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have put a different Attorney General in. You know, the only reason I gave him the job because I felt loyalty. He was an original supporter. I'm disappointed in the Attorney General for numerous reasons, but we have an Attorney General. I'm disappointed in the Attorney General for many reasons, and you understand that. When everybody sees what's going on in the Justice Department, I always put justice now with quotes. I told you before, I'm very disappointed with the Attorney General, but we will see what happens. Time will tell. Time will tell. He took the job, and then he said, I'm going to recuse myself. I said, what kind of a man is this?
But wait, I can't tell. Is he disappointed in Jeff Sessions?
He's such a dummy. He thinks if you repeat something twice, it must be true.
Right.
So, by the way, if you're wondering if you forgot what the recusal thing was, it's not like Attorney General Jeff Sessions said Trump is guilty of anything. It's not like he prosecuted Donald Trump. He just said, oh, we're talking about the Russians. Well, I lied to Congress. I said that I didn't talk to the Russians during the campaign, and I did. Oops, I'm in a lot of trouble. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna recuse myself so I'm not the one making the decisions about the Russian case. He didn't appoint a special prosecutor, he didn't appoint Mueller. All he did was the bare minimum of saying, I'm not the one making decisions because I'm involved in the case. Like every lawyer has to do that. And so he's the top lawyer as Attorney General, he had to do it. And so Trump was like, I don't get it. You're supposed to defend. No, he's not supposed to defend you. He's the Attorney General of the United States, not of Donald Trump. But Trump, once again, just doesn't understand that simple concept. He thinks if I'm president, I'm emperor. And the Attorney General shouldn't work for the people, he should work for me. And if I committed a crime, since he works for me, he should cover it up. So that's why he was so mad. If you were a smart person, you wouldn't let on how mad you were that the guy wouldn't cover up your crimes, because it kind of makes you look guilty.
But he's not a smart person.
No.
He's kind of like a smart person.
A lot of people say I'm kind of like a smart person, and I'm known for two things in my life. One is being mentally stable. The other is hating Jeff Sessions.
I'm a very stable genius.
All the stable geniuses are headed down to Alabama. They're gonna be a lot of fun.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to move away from incredibly dumb people to incredibly smart people. Bernie Sanders has rolled out his immigration plan, and we're going to give you the details.
Now, baby, move that fat, baby, move that fat. We thugged out.
What's J&A?
Ja'Cory and Arthur.
You guys share a mug?
Yeah, you both take our hot cocoa black.
That doesn't make any sense.
Plus, I'm right-handed and Arthur's left-handed, so our lips wouldn't even touch the same area. It's perfect.
No, I'm not left-handed.
What do you mean? I've seen you type with your left hand.
Yeah, and also with my right hand. That's how typing works.
So this is what democracy looks like.
When I think back to the debates
in 2016. This was a very different party that was debating.
First time in my lifetime that I've actually had progressives represent us. Here comes Bernie.
This whole debate tonight was shaped by progressives.
We have to live our values every day in a campaign.
She came with receipts. That was her strongest moment by far.
This is going to be one of the best primaries we've ever seen.
This is what we've been saying would happen, and now it's playing out on the debate stage.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
We are onto something that is going to be amazing, but what we need is your help.
The number one problem is there's too much power in too few hands.
Every single problem that we have can be traced back to dark money.
They take large donors, they serve large donors.
So these handful of gatekeepers try to dictate everything.
Like all of you already know, they don't work for you, they work for their donors. So fire them and hire people who will only work for you that say no corporate backed money.
We are going to change the way we elect candidates in this country.
Uncorrupted Democrats. We're going to fight for the issues and win on policy.
This is incredibly personal. We need free health care for everyone.
We're fighting for $15 minimum wage, single payer health care, debt-free college, and we are going to get money out of politics once and for all.
I've taken a public pledge not to accept any corporate money.
Because the last thing we're going to do is go into another presidential election and run a corporatist against a populist candidate.
At some point, the buck needs to stop, and it's gonna stop with us. It's gonna stop with Justice Democrats.
So who are we?
People who do not take corporate PAC money.
We're relying on small donors.
99.9% of our contributions came from people.
You're a Just Democrat, so you don't take any corporate PAC money.
I'm not influenced by money.
As a Justice Democrat, I made that pledge.
Not a penny. Absolutely no.
I will go to Congress unbossed and unbought.
We try to create a government which works for all of us.
That is what America's about, and that's what a representative democracy should be about.
We are just getting warmed up here.
Vote for uncorrupted Democrats. The fight starts now, it starts today, and it starts with you.
I've been honest with him. Like, yeah, I was upset with you and I should have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Let's go to some comments from the member section. Big Doc D Nice writes in, what's up guys? My wife's birthday's tomorrow. I'm humbly asking for a birthday shout out. Her nickname is D Nice. I remind you all tomorrow. Too late, I'm doing it right now. On her birthday in 2016, she was pregnant with our child who was born on 4/20, by the way.
Nice.
All right. And hashtag Donnie Tiny Hands was elected. Please help me make this a better birthday. Okay, indeed. Happy birthday, D Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for being members, guys. We appreciate it. Beckdo71 says half the country is frozen. Winter came early because Anna put up her Christmas tree too soon. That's on you, Anna.
Did you know that? I already put up my Christmas tree.
I am generally supportive of that. Yeah.
Jake gets it.
Yeah, look, I thought about getting a Christmas tree because I went shopping a couple times. The Christmas decorations are all over the stores.
Yeah.
I was like, Christmas tree. But unlike Anna, I didn't want half the country frozen. I was looking out for you guys.
So look, part of the reason why I put it up, and I haven't announced this yet, is because we're working on something a little special for our members, and my Christmas tree makes an appearance.
Okay, well that's fun for everybody, all right. So it was worth it to freeze the country. Okay, yep. Lilith says, the only good thing about Sessions is Melissa McCarthy's impression of him. Dr. Chaos MD says, if Sessions runs and tanks the GOP's chance of regaining the Senate seat, it will literally be the best thing Sessions will have ever done. And then last one is from Twitter. Enem Leah says, MAGA, facts don't care about your feelings. Graham, my feelings don't care about your facts.
Totally, 100%.
100%. All right, nice job, guys. All right, what's next, Anna?
A few announcements. So we've been doing more and more of the YouTube Super Chats, and the upcoming YouTube Super Chat that we're gonna do will be open for everyone as usual, but instead of doing it for only 30 minutes, we're gonna dedicate a full hour of the show to the Super Chat. So we're gonna be doing this on November 11th, so it's next Monday. Please check it out, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. You have to go to youtube.com/TYT to participate. It's open for everyone, but only the individuals participating in the Super Chat will be able to ask the question. So again, check that out. And then Happy Half Hour will premiere tomorrow. Emily Barros is going to be on the show, and she's actually one of the writers for HBO's hit show Veep. And I love Brett's show. It's just a nice, like, relaxing, funny, entertaining way to decompress from like the super serious, depressing stuff that we have to talk about every day.
I'm with you. I'm gonna read one more tweet, actually. I'm the Derpy Dragon writes, and Trump's like a dumb Borg that assimilates the Republican Party. Resistance is futile. You will be cucked.
Totally. Totally.
That's the best and only good part about Trump, how he has completely humiliated all other Republicans in the country.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about some good politicians, because they do exist, and Bernard Sanders happens to be one of them. So,
what are you, Nina Turner?
I know it. I love that she calls him Bernard Sanders.
Yes.
Bernie Sanders has officially rolled out his plan on immigration, and as usual, Bernie likes to center workers' rights in the heart of every policy he puts out, and immigration reform is certainly no exception. So he is the only Democratic candidate who has decided to focus on workers' rights in addition to immigration reform. And I wanted to show you something that he posted today, actually, on Instagram. It was a photo of his family, and he explained in the caption of this photo on Instagram that immigration is personal to me. My father, Eli, immigrated from Poland to flee poverty and persecution. The rest of his family was wiped out by Nazis. He built a life for himself and his family, working as a paint salesman in Brooklyn, New York. Hashtag, I know where I came from. Okay, so he personalized it, but then he gave some real proposals in this plan. So for instance, he says, he's not a proponent of opening borders, despite what Republicans will say. If you open the borders, my God, there's a lot of poverty in this world, and you're gonna have people from all over the world. And I don't think that's something we can do at this point, can't do it. That was a statement that he made during the Iowa town hall back in April. Now, in regard to his plan, the most sweeping part of his plan, a proposal to use executive action to protect unauthorized immigrants who have lived in the US for more than 5 years from deportation, which, according to the Pew Research Center's estimate, could cover almost 9 million people, more than any other legalization plan in the field. So this is really good news. And look, this is a smart way to approach immigration reform, because if you create a pathway to citizenship, right, and you make legal the status of all these undocumented immigrants, then they won't get paid unfair wages, right? I mean, a lot of times they do get hired and they're paid under the table, and that does unfortunately lower the wages of Americans. So that's an issue that people pretend like they care about. So you legalize them and you ensure that they have the ability to report employers who are underpaying them. But more importantly, you can then, in a more regulated way, tax them and tax the income that they're earning. And then, that'll help pay for a lot of these programs that progressive candidates like Bernie Sanders have proposed, like Medicare for All, Green New Deal, you get the picture.
So let's give context, though. Anna read you that quote about how we can't have open borders. First of all, let's be clear: there's not a single Democratic candidate that is for "quote unquote" open borders. It's not a thing. Trump and the Republicans say that as a talking point, but it doesn't actually mean anything. The furthest that anyone goes is Julian Castro says, instead of making crossing the border illegally a crime, a criminal offense, let's make it a civil offense. So it's still an issue and it's still wrong, but it's a civil issue, not a criminal issue. So he goes the furthest. Now, as you can see from the quote from Bernie, though, in the past, he has cared more about worker rights. Now, it's not an either or, but some folks do paint it as an either or. You either care about worker rights or you care about immigrants. So Bernie here is trying to thread the needle, and he does have to overcome this issue where people have thought he has leaned more in favor of worker rights than immigration or than immigrants in the past. Partly why he's talking about his immigrant story personally, and partly why this proposal is so aggressive. Now, has he threaded the needle correctly? Well, in my opinion, yes. So why do I say that? Well, the immigration reform that didn't even pass, because the Republicans at the end of the day were still too vicious for that, had a pathway to citizenship, but it took 14 years. That is twice as long as indentured servitude. So we read about that in our textbooks, like, oh my God, they would bring people here and treat them like chattel and make them work for really low wages for 7 years before they gave them their freedom. In essence, in the so-called moderate approach in the Senate, it would have taken twice as long. Now, Bernie Sanders is saying no, 5 years. Okay, so that's a big, big difference. Still trying to look out for workers' rights. And everybody will have a different point of view on this. And I think it's fair to say that until this proposal, some were further left than Bernie Sanders was on the immigration issue. After this proposal, I think it's fair to say that he's at least caught most of the candidates in being as progressive as possible on both of the issues.
Yeah, I mean, look, under his proposal, he would legalize more undocumented immigrants who are in the country today than any of the other candidates. Look, it's not a perfect plan, though. I think that there is one flaw that I wanted to bring up, and it has to do with the refugee cap. Now, as we had reported earlier this week, Donald Trump had severely lowered the refugee cap to 18,000 people a year, okay? So just to give you an idea of how much Trump differs from other Democrats, you have Senator Cory Booker and former US Housing Secretary Julian Castro proposing to go back to the pre-Trump refugee cap, which was about 110,000. Senator Sanders, though, would go further with 175,000 by the end.
Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I meant Warren. So Senator Elizabeth Warren would go even further by setting the cap at 125,000 initially, and then increasing it to 175,000 by the end of her first term. Now, in Bernie's plan, he says that he would also raise the cap, but he does not specify a number. And so I would have liked to see more specificity when it comes to the refugee cap number.
Now, a couple more things that are good in this. He, of course, protects DACA, the Dreamers. But everybody does. He also wants to bring back temporary protected status for people who are from countries suffering from natural disasters or wars. That's really good. And this is very important, and he'll be attacked by the right wing on this. But he includes undocumented immigrants in Medicare for all and in college for all. So that'll make right-wing heads explode. Oh, now you're gonna bring these people in here, and if they're bleeding to death, you're gonna actually save their lives, boo. But even further on the college for all, now you're gonna give them the American dream. Oh my God, I don't want them to have the same rights as my kids are better than them, or whatever arguments they make. But they make it in that voice, I'm pretty sure about it. So
sounds like it.
Yeah, look, and lastly on the context of why these issues were conflicting in the past is old school liberal idea was a little bit populist. Like, no, we need to protect American workers, and bringing in undocumented immigrants hurts their wages. And Bernie's an old school liberal, so he's been in that camp for a long time. And in this proposal, he's saying, look, I'm not gonna go after the employees. In fact, I'll protect some of those undocumented immigrants if they're whistleblowers, but I will go after their employers. Now, for people who care about workers' rights, that's fantastic. But remember, if he goes after the employers, if he actually does do that, that will also affect the employees that are hired in those places.
Yeah.
So just full context of what the plan is.
Right, well, my read of that was, it's meant to serve as a deterrent, right? And also, one of the biggest issues when it comes to, I don't know if I explained it eloquently enough, but if you have undocumented workers who employers are underpaying, well, they're going to prefer employing those individuals as opposed to American citizens, right? So again, I think the pathway to citizenship is important in that regard, and going after the employers who do this is a way better strategy than criminalizing and going after undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, last thing on this is, if you go after the employers today, it'll have those ripple effects on the employees. But it's a totally different situation if you've actually done immigration reform and there's a pathway to citizenship in 5 years. Because at that point, yeah, you should go after in my opinion, you should go after the employers and say, hey, everybody's got to do it the legal way because we gave you a pathway to citizenship. So don't try to subvert the system to pay people lower wages and try to get away with it. So all in all, I'm happy with the proposal. I think it's very, very progressive. So I don't know if it'll make both workers' rights and immigrant communities perfectly happy, but there was a little bit of a needle to thread here, and it looks like he did that.
When we come back from the break, we are going to talk about more rich men crying about a proposed wealth tax. This is one of my favorite stories, not just of the day, of the week. There's been a theme and it's lovely. And then later in the show, we are gonna show you some snippets from Don Jr.'s appearance on The View. It was a circus, and we'll discuss it.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News. I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave and C from Steve, and the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer? In true Weekly World News tradition, it's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
I often think about the terror that my grandmother was under until she was 8 or 9 years old, and how horrific that experience must have been in this state of discomfort for the benefit of other people.
People will still treat you like you're the problem. That's what we mean when we say living well black. We're just trying to live our best life. We're trying to be the best that we can be. And we're frustrated and tired of people treating us like we're criminals.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here. This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, The control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way, referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Gabby Marita writes in, as an immigrant, I'm very happy to see a serious candidate actually articulate a good and strongly moral policy on this issue, rather than just random Hispandering during the cable news debates.
Oh, I love it. It's so true. Hispandering is so good.
Yeah, Gabby finishes with, though with Beto out, I hope we'll get less of the latter now. Okay, so shots fired. Anyway.
Qué lástima.
Okay, don't even know that. Oma Oil Rian writes in, Bernie's the only one brave enough to take on immigration. Let's be fair, Julian Castro has taken on immigration in a big, big way. And many others have been very good on this, Cory Booker. And of course, my personal favorite, Elizabeth Warren.
Why are you baiting them like that?
Shill for Warren, I knew it. All right, anyway. But I want to continue because it's a good comment. The GOP doesn't want to eliminate illegal immigration. They like having an underclass to exploit. If they're citizens, they have the same right as Americans, and they don't want to risk strengthening the opposition. So it's a great, great comment. Republicans like the cheap labor because their donors like the cheap labor, but they also don't want those folks to ever vote because they hate Latinos, and everybody knows they hate Latinos, and so Latinos are less likely to vote for them. So that's why they like it, that it's undocumented and illegal, etc., as opposed to actually fixing the system. But I'll read one last one because it's a dissenting voice. From Twitter, Christopher C. Morrow says, no candidates are advocating for open borders, but don't phrase it like that. That's not something some of us advocate for. Borders are violence. Interesting. So I don't think I agree with that, Christopher, but we'd have to talk it out more. But I wanted to make sure people heard your voice too. All right, what's next?
All right. There has been a long line of millionaires and billionaires lining up to go after Elizabeth Warren because of her proposed wealth tax. And the latest is actually Bill Gates. But before we get to him, I just want to remind you guys that we now have a branded segment called Rich Men Cry.
I care. That's it.
It never gets old. That was Leon Cooperman, who is a Wall Street billionaire, and he started crying about the very notion of having to possibly vote for Elizabeth Warren because the wealth tax scares him so much. Now, he's not the only one. He's the only one who's willing to cry on national television, but we even have Bill Gates now, who had a sit-down interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin of the New York Times, and here's what he had to say about Warren's proposed wealth tax.
You know, I've paid over 10 billion in taxes. I paid more than anyone in taxes. But I'm glad to have paid, if I'd had to pay 20 billion, it's fine. But when you say I should pay 100 billion, okay, then I'm starting to do a little math about what I have left over. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
So let me just note that Bill Gates is worth $107 billion. The way Elizabeth Warren's proposed wealth tax works does not indicate that he would pay $100 billion in taxes. That was ridiculous hyperbole. But even if that were true, which it's not, he would still be left with $7 billion. Okay, so it's not like, oh my God, she's gonna tax them to extinction, right? which wouldn't be so bad. But anyway, that's not what she's doing. That's not what she's doing. And so I'm gonna get into the details of how the wealth tax would actually work in just a minute. But let's go to the next video where he elaborates on his feelings about Warren's proposed tax.
Have you ever talked to Elizabeth Warren about any of this before? Would you? Would you want to?
I'm not sure how open-minded she is. Or that she'd even be willing to sit down with somebody, who has large amounts of money.
So later, Elizabeth Warren actually did tweet to Bill Gates and said that she was willing to have a sit-down discussion with him, probably to describe and explain how the wealth tax actually works. But if he's not interested in doing that, it's okay because I'll explain it right now. So how exactly would the wealth tax work? Who does it apply to? It applies only to households with a net worth of $50 million or more, roughly the wealthiest 75,000 households or the top 0.1%. Households would pay an annual 2% tax on every dollar of net worth above $50 million and a 3% tax on every dollar of net worth above $1 billion. So to make the argument that you would lose or have to pay $100 billion in taxes is ridiculous. That's not how this is proposed at all.
Yeah, so now to be fair, with her new Medicare for All proposal, it does go up to 6% for billionaires. So that's 6 cents out of 100. And understand why rich people are freaking out over it. It's not an income tax. It's not the incremental amount of money you made that year. It's a wealth tax, so it's on all of your money. So he has $107 billion, so the math is easy. Let's just treat it as 100 billion, right? Mm. So now it is a lot of money, right? So in the first year of the wealth tax, he'd have to pay $6 billion in taxes. So you can see why he doesn't want to do that. On the other hand, he would have 101 billion left. But my God, what if he had to pay another 6 billion the next year? Okay, he would have 95 billion left. If you've ever done the math on it, no sane person can spend over $40 million. Let alone $400 million, let alone $4 billion, let alone $40 billion. Now I know some of you are at home are like, no, I can't. I can buy mansions, I can buy jets, and I can buy yachts on top of yachts. I said no sane person, okay? So, and Bill Gates is actually sane. He couldn't come anywhere close to spending $1 billion over his lifetime. So what's all the crying about? And look, Bill Gates is a good guy. I think, and now a lot of the left will get mad at me, but he's given away not only his own money in charity, tremendous amount, half of his money at least, but he's gotten other wealthy folks to voluntarily not give 6 cents away, but 50 cents away. Now, of course it happens over the course of their lifetimes and when they pass on, etc. But still, that's a giant commitment. It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. And in the $100 million thing, he clearly was joking, the $100 billion comment, right? But at the same time, there is this like animosity that is weirdly, in my opinion, unwarranted. If you're willing to give away half your money anyway, why are you so bothered by the 6 cent thing when it would give healthcare to every American? And you don't think Elizabeth Warren is reasonable enough to sit down with you? No, that's crazy talk. I mean, who looks at Elizabeth Warren and goes, no, radical, crazy, wouldn't even have a conversation? No, it's of course that's not true.
Well, I was gonna argue with you a little bit, but before I do, I think it's actually important to watch the next clip because he gets asked a very specific question that should be very easy to answer, and he has a difficult time answering it.
Yeah, let's watch.
You have been, I'll politely say, public about your misgivings about our current president. If Elizabeth Warren were the other candidate, what would you do?
I'm not gonna, make political declarations, but I do think no matter what policy somebody has in mind, a professional approach is even, as much as I disagree with some of the policy things that are out there, I do think a professional approach to the office, whoever I decide would have the more professional approach in the current situation probably is the thing that I'll weigh the most. And I hope the more professional candidate is an electable candidate.
Like, what kind of answer is that? Right? Why don't you just say, I mean, the appropriate answer is, I'm gonna vote for Warren. Like even what he's applying, like what he's implying there indicates that he would vote for Warren, but he's having such a hard time saying it.
Yeah, and so I was just in New York at a get together with a decent number of wealthy folks. Okay, it was a conference, a wonderful conference. It's off the record, so I can't talk about any of the specifics. But in the post game, I want to give you guys context of how there are different bubbles in this country, and in the bubble of the wealthy, Warren is like, they are scared to death of her and totally not acceptable. We see a smart, interesting, progressive person, and some might say, hey, Bernie's more progressive, et cetera. Fair point, but no one thinks Warren is out of control, right? In other bubbles, they do not see it that way at all. I'll give you some more details in the postgame, tyt.com/join to become a member and get the last half hour of the show as well. That's what we call the postgame. But I think that Bill Gates there might have been partly referring to Bernie Sanders. It's hard to make out, but like by saying professional over and over again, I thought maybe he was trying to juxtapose Warren to Sanders, meaning like, if Warren's at least a professional and I could maybe vote for her.
This makes me dislike him more. Like,
I'm not defending him. No. I'm just telling you.
And the question was, between Trump and Warren. Like, I don't think we need to like overanalyze it. He had a difficult time saying that he would vote for Warren over Trump. That is ridiculous. That is a ridiculous thing to say. Okay, so anyone who has that much difficulty choosing between the two, I question whether they're a good person or not. Because with Donald Trump, think about that. In that answer, it implies like, oh, protecting my precious money is way more important than anything else, right? And that's not okay. Considering the cruelty of Donald Trump, I mean, you want to talk about lack of professionalism, obviously Trump has that. But like, people have died in cages under his watch. He is a disgusting human being. There's been pain and suffering as a result of him. There's like a genocide happening in Yemen right now with Donald Trump's assistance. So like, what are you even talking about? And then one other thing I want to note. Look, the thing that frustrates me the most about the statements that are coming from all these billionaires is they frame it as if they've obtained this money, they've accumulated this wealth in this hardworking, fair way. But we know that's not the case. The American labor has spent more in terms of the percentage of their money in paying taxes than the hyper wealthy have. So there's this incredible statistic that I want to share with you. The top 0.1% are projected to owe 3.2% of their wealth in federal, state, and local taxes this year, while the bottom 99% are projected to owe 7.2%. Okay? So that is insane. The fact that the people at the bottom pay a much higher share of their earnings to taxes, but the wealthy pay, again, 3.2% as opposed to 7.2% that the bottom 99% pay.
Now, again, Bill Gates probably has paid more taxes than any other human on the planet. Bezos is richer than Bill Gates now, but somehow Skates, his company, pays almost no taxes almost every year, even though it's one of the most successful companies the planet has ever seen. And so Gates does not do tax avoidance at the same level as some of the other wealthy do.
This is beyond Gates. My point is beyond Gates. Like, I don't care what any individual billionaire does. I don't care about how much they give to charity. I don't care about their philanthropic work. We can't rely on whether or not billionaires are gonna do philanthropic work to fill in the gaps that are left behind, the lack of revenue, tax revenue that's generated.
Well, that last part is indisputably true because, for example, people defend the Koch brothers by saying, "But did you know they gave to the opera?" Okay,
don't care.
No, that I couldn't care less if my life depended on it. But they also have given, David Koch has given money to cancer. He's now passed away. He had cancer, so it affected him. Being a conservative, he's like, "Oh, it affects me now. I care, right?" And so it's great that he gave money to cancer, but they systematically, the Koch brothers, have denied a real tax base to the American people that could have given everyone health care. So they just. It's like the mob, you take a lot of money, or in the case of the mob, you steal a lot of money. And in some of the billionaires' case, it's true that they do something similar, right? And then you hand out a tiny bit in the parades to the poor. You throw it on the streets and have them, grovel for it and pick it up, and then you say, "Look at me, I'm such a good guy. I gave away a couple of cents." Right? But meanwhile, you keep most of the loot. In the case of Bill Gates, I don't think he looted anything. I think he did work hard. He came from a middle-class family. I know he also got lucky. If you read the story of how he happened to know how coding and computers so well, he happened to be one of the very few schools in the country at his age that had a computer in it. Then he went and worked really hard at learning what it was about and learning programming and doing all that stuff. But he was among just a handful of kids who had access to a computer at that time. But that doesn't mean he didn't work hard. But that also doesn't mean that we are distributing taxes in a fair way in this country. We most certainly are not.
Right. All right, well, we got to take a break. When we come back, unfortunately, Hillary Clinton is in the news again, also critiquing some of Warren's policy proposals. And then later in the show, we are going to hopefully have a little bit of fun. Oh yeah, Don Jr. on The View, that was insane. So come right back.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News. I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave and C from Steve, and the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer? In true Weekly World News tradition, it's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
I often think about the terror that my grandmother was under until she was 8 or 9 years old, and how horrific that experience must have been in this state of discomfort for the benefit of other people.
People will still treat you like you're the problem. That's what we mean when we say living while black. We're just trying to live our best life. We're trying to be the best that we can be. And we're frustrated and tired of people treating us like we're criminals.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Back on the Young Turks. Remember, guys, like I said in the beginning of the show, do not miss next week's shows. There's going to be a dramatic announcement.
Even if there weren't going to be a dramatic announcement, you shouldn't miss next week's shows or any shows.
Dramatic.
Okay.
Okay. Frayed End of Janity says, imagine if a decent person like Bill Gates will consider voting for Trump when he's faced with the prospect of wealth redistribution and higher taxes. What lengths the rest of the billionaires who are not good people will do in order to keep their wealth? If Bernie or Warren become the Dem candidate, we need to prepare for political war.
Oh, for sure.
Billion% right. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the post game. So tyt.com/join to hear that. Cognosco this as a simpler point. Just says, right on, Anna. Okay.
Thanks.
And Socialist Daughter on Twitter says, okay, when Rich Men Cry segment is the best. Bravo, guys.
I know, it's so good. By the way, special thanks to Jordan. He is an intern who's been working with us for a few months, and he put together the As the White House Turns
which is
intro.
Never not funny.
It's always funny. And now the one that we just premiered today, the When Rich Men Cry bumper. I love it.
All right, also rich women, as the next story will tell you.
Yes, all right, so. Hillary Clinton sat down for an interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin. It was a New York Times event, and it seems like one of the main topics was Elizabeth Warren and her proposals. Of course, the wealth tax came up in conversation with Clinton, and here's what she had to say.
Do you support a wealth tax?
You know, I don't know the details of it. I hear about it. I hear what it would cover. I don't understand the mechanism that would be required. You know, I'm not against, raising rates. I'm not against, getting rid of things like carried interest, which I think have, gone way past their sell date. I just don't understand how that could work, and I don't see other examples anywhere in the world where it has actually worked over a long period of time. We used to have a wealth tax. It was called the estate tax. I would be all in favor of reinstating the estate tax because that is much more measurable. It is not as disruptive. If you were going to do a wealth tax and it was on assets, which as I understand it is what they're looking to do.
That's what they're looking to do with
how you would value it is, I think complicated to start with, but assume you could get some system of valuation. People would literally have to sell assets to pay the tax on the assets that they owed before the wealth tax was levied. That would be incredibly disruptive.
So Warren's wealth tax plan is actually not very complicated, and it's very easy to read, and it takes maybe 5 minutes max. So she should read it before she comments on it. But nonetheless, I'll go ahead and explain some of the answers to the concerns that she raised there. So first off, the mechanism that would be utilized in order to determine the value of the assets is called the IRS. And that's the same mechanism that's used for determining assets or the value of assets in estate taxes. And so Warren's plan would use that same mechanism. The only difference is rather than focusing solely on estate taxes, it would focus on the wealth tax. It's like essentially doing the same thing you would do for the estate tax, right? And what they would do is, let's say you have assets that are difficult to determine in value, right? So let's say you have a valuable piece of art, right? That is an asset that's worth something that could potentially be taxed under Warren's wealth tax. In her plan, she has written that you can defer that tax for up to 5 years in order to give ample time to determine the value of that asset. So it's actually very well thought out. And if you decide to denounce your citizenship in order to avoid these taxes, this is an argument that Republicans make all the time. Oh, they're gonna leave this country. What are we gonna do when all these rich people leave the country? Well, there's actually an exit tax written in her plan, and that tax is to the tune of 40%.
No, if you'd like to leave, have at it, Hoss. You're just gonna have to give us 40% right now. Instead of 2 cents or 6 cents, we'll take 40. Your call. Okay, look, but I don't want people thinking it's punitive. What happened was there was a class war in this country. It was waged by the wealthy, particularly not all the wealthy, but particularly the donors, against all the rest of us. And so they lowered their taxes systematically over the last 40 years. And they increased the fines you pay, the fees you pay, they increased the payroll tax, all the regressive taxes, the sales tax, all of that stuff that you pay more, they increase. They already did that war, they already won that war. And so when Warren or Sanders says, no, wait a minute, we're gonna put this back into balance, they flip out like, oh, do you? Now look, I'm not saying that the wealth tax is the easiest thing in the world to implement. Yes, there'll be people trying to hide their assets, etc. In fact, I want to read one of your guys' comments. One of our members wrote in, their handle is, you're gonna need a bigger Buttigieg. And wrote in, I do worry that what Andrew Yang said might be true. Tax them 3%, tax them 6%, tax them whatever. It will be difficult to make them pay up. Other countries tried it and gave up. So I want to give you full context. By the way, we read our members' comments throughout the show. If you want to be a member, tyt.com/join. And so I understand some of the challenges there, but can we overcome them? Well, as Anna pointed out, even Hillary Clinton showed you how we could overcome them. She mentioned the estate tax. So we already do this. We figure out your assets, we figure out what they're worth, and then we take some percentage of it in the estate tax. So there's really no reason on earth why we couldn't do it yearly as opposed to one time. So will some people, and Hillary Clinton's right, some will have to sell some assets to pay the tax. But if remember, it's for people that have over $50 million in assets. And then it gets a little steeper on people who have over $1 billion. So if you have to sell one of your beloved paintings that you bought for $125 million because you didn't know what to do with your money, so that you could pay a tax on the other billions of dollars in paintings and cars and yachts you have, and that pays for Medicare for all?
That literally keeps people alive.
Yeah, that keeps people alive. I'm not only not going to shed a tear over that, I'm going to be exuberant about that.
Totally, 100%. Now, go ahead.
Just last thought on it is that this is why Hillary Clinton lost, because she empathizes with the very, very wealthy way more than she empathizes with the average voter. That's why people thought she was elitist. And there's a reason for that. She's surrounded by them. She is one of them. You know how much money the Clintons have now? Well, when they went into office, they had almost nothing. Now they have over $150 million. So you can say, hey, listen, they earned it with speeches to bankers and books, etc. But they have a lot of assets and this tax would apply to them. So all of a sudden she finds it very hard to execute.
One other thing that she finds hard to execute is Medicare for all, the legislation that Bernie Sanders wrote and Warren supports. And so she's asked about that, and here's what she has to say.
Do you think, though, that the Medicare for all plan that you saw last week, you could get behind?
You know, I think if it were to go to the Senate, that was the point I was making before. If you had a president who pushed to present it, I would be very much in favor of whatever the debate was. And But
you just don't think that that plan would ever get enacted?
No, I don't. I don't. But the goal, the goal is the right goal.
So I would give her half credit there, actually. At least she's saying it's the right goal. I know that for the current politicians running, that's their excuse for not actually doing it. Oh, it's a good right goal, and we'll get to it 20 years from now. But she's not running for office. She's at least backing up that, yeah, we should get to Medicare for all. Now, the second half, I'm not gonna give her credit at all, quite the opposite. But in an ironic kind of way, she proposed much more comprehensive healthcare during her husband's administration. And she got burned on it, and she lost that vote, and it was considered damaging to the Clinton administration. But I never minded that. I give her credit for trying.
Definitely, yeah.
So, but Washington doesn't see it that way. And so everybody said like, oh, Hillary Clinton doesn't know what she's doing. She tried to actually help people, and she got so burned by that. The lesson she learned was don't.
You're right, yeah, that is the exact right commentary on it, right? Because I think her personal experiences and the messaging following that experience has kind of like I don't know, it's kind of pushed her to submission on the whole idea of Medicare for all. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the country is in a different place right now. You know, later at one point in this interview, she mentioned the fact that the Affordable Care Act is actually wonderful because now 90% of Americans have health care coverage. But coverage is not enough. Coverage just means, all right, well, if there's something catastrophic, I have a private insurance company who's gonna price gouge me into bankruptcy. That's what that means, right? And you still have 30 million Americans who do not have any healthcare coverage at all. The system is still incredibly flawed. So like that statistic of 90% of Americans have healthcare coverage is not a good statistic to cite, especially for people who actually know what's going on with private insurance in America.
So last set of stats that I'll give you guys on that. The average family of 4 pays more than $12,000 a year in healthcare. That is a stunning number and makes no sense at all. So it's no wonder that people go bankrupt. In fact, 23 million people don't have healthcare. So you say, oh, we're covering 90%, 10% is a lot. And so that's 23 million adults that don't have healthcare. And then you've got another 64 million who forego medical treatment because they're worried it's gonna bankrupt them. So, and some of them die because they didn't take their medicine because they thought they couldn't afford it. So Hillary Clinton, when she went to Washington, was right. You should try for bold change, even if you don't win it first try. Unfortunately, what you could see it in this interview, Washington warped her. So she came in with the right ideas and the right effort, and she came out thinking nothing is possible. Let's not even try. Everybody, please don't, whatever you do, don't try. The Republicans will beat us. Please surrender right away. Well, you did, that's why you lost the election. And this is not what the American people want. What they want is strong progressives actually fighting for them.
Quick break, and when we come back, Don Jr. on The View.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
The earth is burning.
Yeah.
Not only that, but that should shake you enough, period. But that so many people in power don't seem to care.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
We have to also remember that we like to put people in prison in this country.
There is only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting it up, 3, 2, 1. All right, video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm at a Wolfpack gathering.
We're growing. I see faces that I recognize, but I also see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and that's fantastic.
We are all taking time out of our lives to be here, and that's amazing. That means we truly believe in this. Make no mistake, everyone in this room is a leader in Wolfpack.
Alaska, West Virginia, Montana, Georgia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, everyone is here. All these folks paid with their own money and sometimes took vacation days to come here to strategize on how to get our democracy back and get money out of politics.
Or you get more political power just because you have more money. This is why it requires a constitutional amendment.
The process of winning in your state next year doesn't begin when session begins. It begins right now.
To work to a goal, something this big that you're actually making a difference of, there's very few things in the world that really compare to that feeling.
Equal rights to fair representation, rights for human beings, anti-corruption laws, and free and fair elections. That's what we are fighting for.
What were the founding fathers? Revolutionaries. And they built revolution into the document.
So Article 5 is the way we have to go.
This is how you do it.
You're in this as a team, you're in this together. The fight will always continue.
That fight is not between the left and the right. That fight is between basically greed and humanity.
So I'm asking you to put differences aside, whether you're conservative or independent or progressive, to join forces to say no more corruption.
You get beyond the fear, you take that first step, and you'll change the world.
What I want to leave you with, of course, is hope. And I want to assure you that if we keep fighting together, we're going to win together. We're going to get that convention, we're going to get that amendment, and we're going to get our democracy back. Come join us, wolf-pack.com.
All right, back on the Young Turks. A lot of people had some version of this comment. Damn War Eagle said, I care nothing at all anymore about anything that Hillary has to say on any topic ever again at this point. Can we all just move on from her? Okay, fair enough. Brenta Korn wrote in, the story of what happened to Hillary Clinton over time in Washington keeps me up at night when I think about AOC's potential future. So listen, AOC right now is great. The Just Democrats are great, etc. But there is overwhelming pressure, and the bubble in Washington is absolutely real. So let's all be careful.
Not only that, I think it's so important, you guys, to give progressive members of Congress, people like AOC, positive reinforcement and support, because they get all that pressure from the establishment. They get all that hate on social media. You know, I think it's just important to give them some love when you see them fighting for you. You know, that's all I'm saying. But spread some positive energy to them because they need it.
100%. All right, last one. My Gay Marriage says, exactly, Anna. This summer I spent over $600 as part of my out-of-pocket deductible, only to be prescribed a $65 bottle of medicine that I have to refill twice a month. Let me just say, I'm not refilling it twice a month. I'm so lucky to be able to pay $120 a month for this non-coverage. It's killing us all, literally. The bills are killing us. The lack of healthcare is killing us. Medicare for all is definitely the right answer, but these billionaires are flipping out. In a story that we'll talk more about in the postgame, Michael Bloomberg now considering running for president because, just like I told you, New York is. I mean, I said it before that, New York's flipping out. They're like, oh my God, Warren might win. We have to stop her, even if it means Trump winning.
Jeez. All right, geez. Okay, let's talk about Don Jr. So, Don Jr. and his girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, went on The View and discussed a variety of topics, including Don Jr.'s wealth. Now remember, Don Jr.'s been throwing jabs at the Bidens, arguing that Hunter Biden was working at a Ukrainian gas company when he had no expertise. This is a perfect example of corruption. I think that's a fair point to make if you're not living in the type of glass house that Don Jr. is living in. And so Sonny Hostin calls him out on it. Take a look.
I get that I'm the son of a rich guy from New York. I understand that. My father has done a lot. You know, I've benefited from that as Hunter Biden has. The difference is we did that as a private company. When we got into international politics, the second my father won the presidency, he said, we will not do new foreign deals going forward.
According to your father's financial report, he earned about $40.8 million, just a minute, from his DC hotel in 2018. The Attorney General is going to hold a $30,000 holiday party at the DC hotel. A lobbying firm with ties to the Saudi government paid $270,000 to the hotel between October 2016 and March 2017. There's
Well, listen, let me
thank God he's president. He knows how to make
glad
a
you brought it up, because these are the
The
details.
bottom line is you have made money.
But let me finish. These are the details that the
From
media
your father's
always neglects.
presidency.
Yes, we're in the hotel business. We have been for decades. That's not a secret.
Yeah, look, here's the problem with what's currently going on with you guys still owning that hotel business and using the office of the presidency in order to make additional profits through these hotel businesses. So opensecrets.org is a wonderful resource that everyone should look into whenever you're questioning what's going on financially with politicians, who's funding politicians. And they did this wonderful piece explaining how much money has gone into Trump properties during Trump's presidency. So total payments to Trump properties, over $20 million. You see the number right there from Trump-related committees. Now remember, you have these organizations, these political organizations, you have foreign governments like putting money into these properties knowing that they can garner support or get favors from Trump if they do that. So from Trump-related committees, you have over $16 million. From the Republican Party, you have nearly $2 million. From Republican candidates, elected officials, and leadership PACs, you have a little over $1 million, like 1.2 nearly $1 million. So this is money that's been going into Trump properties following his election. And the reason why this is an issue is not because, Trump's making money. It's because those payments, those events that get held at his properties are done in a way to get Donald Trump to do favors for whichever organizations, right?
But would Donald Trump do that? Would he put his own personal interest ahead of American interest? Of course. Look, here's the guy who said before he was president, the Saudis, I like the Saudis. They buy my apartments at $40 to $50 million. Am I not supposed to like them? So, and then the Saudis dismembered a Washington Post columnist, and he still liked them.
Exactly.
And so, and Kimberly Guilfoyle there chipping in like, hey, like the president makes money. No, but you're not supposed to make money at our expense, and you're not supposed to make it from foreign governments. So in an earlier story that was on the same topic, we showed you very important context, because Donald Trump Jr. says, hey, we're in the hotel business. That stuff happens all the time. No, before Trump became president, the amount of times that those foreign governments stayed at his hotels were nearly zero. So now, did foreigners stay at those hotels? Of course, right? So somebody comes in from Italy or Saudi Arabia, they might stay at some Trump hotel. But foreign governments bringing their delegations in was almost never went to Trump hotels.
Right.
And after he wins, millions of dollars go into Trump hotels from those foreign governments.
So this is a great statement from Open Secrets. By keeping his assets in a family managed trust, which he can revoke at any time, Trump and his family are in a unique position to profit directly from his public service. Special interests in Washington have caught on. Those seeking to curry favor with Trump are not only donating to his re-election campaign, but holding fundraisers and galas at his resorts, private clubs, and hotels, the proceeds of which benefit him and his family. And then you have Trump Jr. arguing about how Hunter Biden had no business serving on the board of a Ukrainian gas company because he didn't have any expertise. Okay, fine. And again, that is a fair statement to make. We've made that statement on this show. But then how do you explain the fact that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are White House senior advisors? What is their expertise in government, in politics, in advising the president? Like, what is their expertise there? None, zero, there's none.
Let alone the literally patent corruption of Ivanka getting her patents approved from China after Donald Trump made a very important decision about a Chinese business company that the Chinese government wanted, okay? Let alone Jared Kushner going and selling his boondoggle, the worst real estate mistake in New York history. Jared Kushner did that. He then tried to peddle it to foreign governments and buyers as soon as Trump was elected.
That's exactly, and he got in trouble for that.
You're right, and Hunter Biden getting $50,000 a month was child's play compared to what Jared Kushner tried to do with his multi-billion-dollar building in New York.
Yes, Kushner Co. went to China specifically and met with a number of incredibly wealthy investors and said, hey, if you're willing to invest $500,000 or more into our properties, we can get you a special visa.
So that's a separate story from the building one. It goes on and on. In fact, of course, so Donald Trump Jr. is saying, oh my God, but once we step into political office, we would never try to take advantage financially for our family. Donald Trump himself just said, hey, I want the G7 summit held in my property in Miami at the Doral. And then all other Republicans were like, no, what are you doing? We're already having an impossible time trying to defend you from impeachment. And then you go and violate the Emoluments Clause and do brazen corruption. And so he finally backpedaled out of it. But you all saw it with your own eyes. He tried to get foreign governments to go to his property and force them to do it as president of the United States. So if anyone has the right to criticize Hunter Biden, it certainly isn't Donald Trump or Donald Trump Jr. They're the last people on earth who have a leg to stand on.
Absolutely. All right, well, while Donald Trump Jr. was making his appearance on The View, he was asked some pretty tough questions when it came to the impeachment investigation, and he really did struggle in defending his own father. Take a look.
In the memo of the call that was released from the White House between your father and the Ukraine president, your father said, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. And we have the entire part of the memo here. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. This is the basis of the impeachment inquiry. Why is that a sham?
The whole
Which is
thing,
what you're calling
first of all, because nothing was withheld. The other guy on the other side actually said, I have no idea what you're talking about. No one knew any aid was even being withheld. The other guy in the Ukraine, in terms of aid being withheld. So no one knew about these things.
But that's not true, that's a lie. Military aid was withheld.
Yeah. Yes. No one knew about it in the Ukraine. So there was no quid pro quo. You see all the other aspects of this coming out.
It was withheld.
So Sonny Hostin is 100% right. I mean, you see Don Jr. really fumbling there, but there is additional evidence indicating that Ukrainian officials did know that military aid was being withheld unless Zelensky went on CNN, Fareed Zakaria's show, and announced that he was launching an investigation into the Bidens, right? And so you have Kurt Volker, who was writing the statement on behalf of Zelensky, right, for Zelensky. And there was this whole negotiation happening between US and Ukrainian officials. So what he said there was a lie, but you can tell he was lying because he was stuttering and fumbling all over the place.
Yeah, now that we have the latest breaking story that we covered at the top of the show showing that the Ukrainians 100% knew that the aid was being withheld, until they made a damaging statement about Joe Biden. His last defense doesn't make any sense either. He says it wasn't withheld, not remotely true. Sonny Hostin points that out. And then he says, well, they didn't know about it. They didn't know we were trying to be criminals, so I guess we were failed criminals. Also not true. They definitely knew about it and they were under intense pressure. And if you noticed, he doesn't even know the Ukrainian president's name. He's like, the other guy involved in Ukraine, the other guy. It's Zelensky, the guy that your dad is gonna get impeached over. But doesn't bother to do his homework, just like his dad.
It's amazing. And then finally, when it comes to Gordon Sondland, who is the EU ambassador, Don Jr. asks or is asked about why Sondland changed his testimony to confirm that there was quid pro quo.
Did Gordon Sondland lie then when he changed his testimony yesterday?
Well, I don't know why he changed his testimony. It's sort of interesting. It almost, he says something.
He's afraid of
on the
perjury.
record,
He's afraid of going to jail.
Or he's afraid of being attacked, like so many of us have for so long, by a vicious left that's running a one-sided sham thing. By Adam Schiff, who's doing a one-sided thing. Republicans can't ask questions.
So while he says that the left is vicious, just keep in mind that Donald Trump, Rand Paul, and the rest of the Trump lackeys are running around demanding for the release of the whistleblower's identity. Some have gone so far as to, on social media post a name. I don't know if it's confirmed. We are not gonna share a name like that on this show, but nonetheless, they're posting it. They're putting someone's life in jeopardy because this individual did the responsible thing in filing an official whistleblower complaint against Trump for something that Trump did that was wrong. That was clearly wrong.
Look, this is how vengeful they are and how crazy they are. So today, Glenn Beck apparently had a long diatribe about how the whistleblower is going to be killed by the Democrats. Like some QAnon-like conspiracy where the whistleblower is actually on Trump's side or some insanity like that. We'll look into it more. Maybe we'll have more of that on tomorrow's show. But Donald Trump Jr. is also a guy who's gone after the whistleblower. But the reality is the whistleblower actually is totally irrelevant. They're latching on to him to make him some sort of enemy to be hated. But he said, hey guys, red flag, there's a issue here and you should look into it. We did look into it and it turns out he was right. And we now have half a dozen witnesses who all say the same thing. So you don't need the whistleblower at all.
I know.
He's just the one that raised the flag. And so when they originally said some of his evidence is hearsay, if you remember on this show, I said that's actually true, but that's why they're gonna do an investigation and find out if it's hearsay that's wrong or hearsay that's correct. They did the investigation and they found the actual witnesses. The whistleblower is totally irrelevant, but these guys are like a mob. So they're like, the rat, we gotta find the rat so we can go crush him, right? And then you say the left is vicious? Hilarious.
I mean, it's all about retaliation. And more importantly, it's about intimidation. Because you think there aren't more potential whistleblowers in the Trump administration? This is their way of, because remember, if this individual's identity is released and you know that if you're a potential whistleblower and you know that that could happen to you, are you willing to come forward and blow the whistle on potentially criminal activities in the Trump administration? It's terrifying. And in this climate of political violence, I mean, it's not an easy decision to make. This is a form of intimidation, plain and simple.
And look, it's a mob move, because the biggest crime in the mob is ratting people out, working with law enforcement, working with the cops to tell them about your law breaking. So the funny thing is they're not going after the witnesses nearly as much who say, yes, he did the crime. They're more worried about the original rat who told the cops on us. Look, if it wasn't a lifelong criminal enterprise for the Trump organization, you would say it's irrational, it doesn't make any sense. But it's their instinct. Hey, we break the law all the time, make sure that you target the guy who pointed it out.
So Lieutenant Colonel Vidman, who has testified in the impeachment investigation, who has confirmed that there was quid pro quo, he has been defamed, slandered by these Trump lackeys over and over again. They've accused him of being a never Trumper, all sorts of nonsense. You know that he's still showing up to work every day in the White House?
Look, that guy's brave, a lot of them are brave, and I hope they have protection because the president has completely deranged followers who literally send pipe bombs and try to murder people who are opposed to the president. So, and Donald Trump Jr. and all of them go on and egg people on all throughout. Last thing, because it's just randomly funny. Remember, as I was mocking last week, the Republicans' defense of Donald Trump, including Kevin McCarthy, he was just throwing out legal terms that had no logical connection to this case. It was just like mad libs of Trump defenses, legal terms. And I even said in my joking around, they'll just come out and go, there's no prima facie case, because it's just a random Latin word that Kimberly Guilfoyle in that appearance said, there's no prima facie case. Okay, it again, makes no sense in this context. You don't need a prima facie case, but it doesn't matter. It's like, if I use a Latin word, nobody will understand it and I'll seem smart. All right, guys, I got great interviews coming up for you guys and an awesome post game about the New York bubble and how they're reacting to Warren and Sanders. Don't miss that, TYT.com/join.
Trump has already launched Trump TV. In fact, they recently did a weather report. So why don't we go to the Trump Weather Channel and see what they have to say about this story.
This is Brett Ehrlich reporting live on Hurricane Dorian as the storm bears down here in Mobile, Alabama. And as you can see, the weather is actually pretty nice. We need to fix this shot. We need to make it seem like there's more of a hurricane. Okay, actually, let's go to some video of a hurricane. Oh God, that's what a hurricane would look like if one was here. And that's scary, isn't it? And actually, if you listen really close, you can hear the wind. Real natural debris. And I'm not even sure how the people here in Mobile will cope with the cleanup afterwards. So we're just really waiting we gotta get out of the shot. We gotta get out of the shot with bated breath to see what will happen. And ow, okay, all right, okay, that's back to you guys, back to you in the studio. All right. Mr. President, I can't fake rain. What do you mean use a Sharpie? As you can see, the rain is coming down in buckets. The rain's coming down all over the place, and there is no quarter. There is no quarter, no place to hide. I quit. I just quit.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who is so crazy, they have finally out-crazied North Korea.
The US is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear accords.
People call the police on black people. People are fearful of black humans. There is no more to the story than racism.
I was gonna say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue with lead poisoning and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. This is The Damage Report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. Can we start talking about it now? Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on the Young Turks. One thing I forgot to mention that we're also going to do in the post game, other than the wealthy New Yorkers' reaction to Warren and Sanders, is my misadventures on the subway. That's why I want JR in the post game. He's going to be with us too, because I want a reaction of another big guy to see if he would have the same reaction. Anyway, interesting stories. That's in the last half hour. TYT.com/join to become a member to get that. Now let's go to our guest. Joining me now is Sarah Kleiner. She's the federal politics reporter for Center for Public Integrity. Sarah, welcome to the Young Turks.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You wrote a really great piece called "You Donated to Kids with Cancer. This Vegas telemarketer cashed in." So where shall we start? Let's start with the idea that when you give money to these incredibly important causes, it might not be going to those causes at all. So give us the background and context on that phenomenon overall.
Sure, right. All of us receive phone calls maybe on a daily basis from telemarketers who are asking us for money. And in some cases, or in many cases, as we found, the money is not going exactly where people who donate think it's going. And we were able to show that this has been going on in the charitable world for a very long time. And it's recently actually branched out into the world of political action committees. And these organizations sound like charities, like the Children's Leukemia Support Network, the Firefighters Alliance of America, on. And these groups call, ask for money, you send it in, and then it turns out that about 86 cents out of every dollar that you send in is going to a for-profit telemarketing company.
So why are they political action committees?
That's a great question, and some experts say that the reason why some people who have been involved in charitable fundraising are moving into political fundraising is because it's an unregulated world, or it's a less regulated world. The Federal Election Commission right now is actually at an impasse because it's not able to do its work at this point. It doesn't have a quorum, and it can't process complaints. So we're talking about a world where the Department of Justice has stepped in and is cracking down, but we were able to show that, based on a data analysis, that there were 38 political action committees in the 2015-2016 election cycle that raised most of their money from small dollar donors and then plowed most of that back into fundraising, wages, and administration. That number climbed from 38 to 61 in the last election cycle. The person I focused on in my story, Richard Zeitlin, accounted for about half of that increase in between those two election cycles.
Wow, that's a lot. So does he have a child affected by leukemia? Is he a former firefighter? Is there some reason why he's animated about this and wants to be involved?
So he actually got his start in Milwaukee. He was delivering pizzas as a 16-year-old and delivered pizzas to a telemarketing company. And the man there said, "Hey, do you want to come in and make more money than you can delivering pizzas?" And he said, "Sure." His brother says the rest is history. He built his companies up from there. He moved to Las Vegas with a partner. They started bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity clients every year. That became millions of dollars, then $10 million. So, out of $153 million raised for charities and political action committees since 2006, his companies have been paid about $133.1 million of that.
Wow. So only did the other 20 million actually go to the charities?
Yes. So the charities got that cut of the rest of the money. And in many cases, we were able to show that the money was spent mostly on salaries and other overhead like rent or lawyer fees or accounting fees, et cetera. So in many cases, even that small margin that actually went to the charity wasn't being used for charitable purposes.
So is it possible that they're just incredibly inefficient managers that, like, God, we raised all this money, but we had to spend a lot more money to raise it, and golly gee, we did the math, and over this huge period of time, we just wound up spending most of it on ourselves?
So you might think that could be the case. In certain cases, there were a handful of charities who contracted with Richard Zeitlin's companies that were shut down by the Federal Trade Commission or various attorneys general across the United States. So in those particular cases, the 4 or 5 that were shut down, regulators came to the conclusion that they were very much aware of how the money was being spent, and they were very much aware of what donors were hearing on the phone from telemarketers that were saying, I'm raising money for this good cause, and then the money wasn't going there. So in certain cases, we know of regulators saying that they were very much aware of what was going on.
So is the charge there that even the charities they give the money to was part of the operation, that it wasn't normal charities that actually care about leukemia and cops and all the other things, but it was folks that also were enriching themselves through the charities that they gave to?
Right, it's a bit of a tiered system, a bit of a network, if you will. There are the donors who send money. They get a phone call from a telemarketer, and that telemarketer is contracting with either a charity or a political committee. It's a third party. And so then a letter gets sent out to the donors, and the donors send in their money, and without realizing it, that a big piece of it is going to the professional fundraiser, and then another piece of it is going to the person who runs the charity or the political action committee. One example of this, for instance, I mentioned the Children's Leukemia Support Network. That's actually based out of Las Vegas, and there are 4 political action committees that are run by the same couple, William Pollack and his wife, Keisha Pollack. They run Children's Leukemia Support Network, and then a group for police officers, one for firefighters, and one for people with heart disease. And William Pollack happens to be a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department officer. He's on patrol duty in the northwest part of the city. And so he's out there enforcing laws, even as we speak, as of today, as far as we know, because the department is investigating the allegations against him, but no action has been taken at this point.
So Sarah, I remember getting a call a number of years back from someone who was raising money for a police charity, and when I didn't know if it was really a police charity, and I've read some of these stories in the past, not one as extensive as yours about this particular situation, and as you point out, it's gotten much worse. But I was not sure, so I said, "Listen, man, this is not how I give. So I appreciate it, but no, right?" And then he started saying like, "Oh, so you don't care about cops?" And I thought that was weirdly threatening, but I had assumed that he actually was a cop. I just didn't know about that particular charity, right? So are you saying that when you get a call from these guys, they might be doing those kind of tactics and they're not remotely cops or firefighters, and they're not really raising money for that anyway?
Right, and government regulators crack down on that sort of thing. If they get their hands on recordings that show that telemarketers are claiming to be police officers when they're not, that's not legal. I think it's important to point out that in the United States, it is actually legal to spend almost all of the money you raise for charitable purposes on fundraising. And same with PACs. It is legal to spend that money on fundraising. What is not legal is lying to donors about how the money is going to be used. So the catch is that regulators have to get a hold of either the recordings or the letters that were sent out to donors that explain or that claim that the money is going to be used doing such and such, and it's actually not. So that's where regulators have to step in and make that determination. Sorry, as you were saying, this problem has gotten worse, and there's clearly a lot of work to do on the part of regulators.
So Sarah, if they actually don't say that, hey, the majority of the money goes to the charity, all this might be legal.
That's correct. If they're very, very careful about how they word their request for money, then it's legal.
And Sarah, how much does this hurt real charities? Because it creates doubt in people like me when somebody calls from a charity.
Right. So the person in charge of policing this sort of thing for the Federal Trade Commission, Lois Greisman, I spoke to her on the phone for my story, and she actually said herself, this is a ripple effect, and it's a huge problem because people who give money are losing out. They intended their money to be used for something, and they're not getting what they wanted. Then legitimate charities who are actually using money as they say they are going to are not getting the money. So that's another effect. So, right, it is a ripple effect. And she said, if someone calls you out of the blue and asks for money, you've got to do research, just as you would if you were buying a car or buying a new phone. Go online, do some research, go to Charity Navigator, go to Charity Watch, and look to see how these organizations are rated. Now, I will say this. What is interesting is that there are organizations that rate charities, but that's not information that's easy to find for political action committees. So if someone calls you and you ask them, are you a political action committee or are you a charity? And they say they're a PAC, then you've got to go onto the FEC's website or on Open Secrets and do a bunch of research yourself to see how that money's being spent. It's not as easy to determine if someone is using the money as they say they are.
Man, there are things that go bump in the night. All right, and journalism exposes that. So Sarah Kleiner, thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing this story. We appreciate it. And everybody check out publicintegrity.org to see more on this. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, when we come back, progressive challenging a Democratic incumbent. I wonder if he'll get into trouble. We'll be right back.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben, Cenk.
This is my problem with Forever 21. This is like a really cool turtleneck. Like it looks nice, it looks soft, it looks professional. I can wear it to work. And then you pick it up and turn it around and the back says taco booty. And it's like, what?
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
And she was like, does mom know you curse that much? And I was like, I didn't curse at all in the movie. I played silent mom.
Yeah, right.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong. I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
We're in Hollywood.
I
Raise
know.
your hand if you're not a vegan.
Okay.
See, nobody.
He's like Kevin with Ben Affleck. He's like afraid to text me.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck.
But what makes you stop right before 40? You know, what makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m.
I don't mean to get upset.
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
I heard of it. I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not fucking, Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
But I imagine you could be famous and not give a shit. But it's tough to be a human and not give a shit.
We got to let the podcast guys go to TYT.com/join to become a member, get the whole show. And now it's just the three of us.
That's it.
Okay,
this is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
He's a bad neighbor.
Neighbors know I'll be watching. We're always
Please
gonna
tell
be.
me you do not waste your wife's time with this ridiculously stupid argument.
The Bad News Bears is a movie that taught an entire generation how to not win. How to lose gracefully.
See, I watch movies.
Kingsley.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. We're out of time. So
Are we?
Yeah, I know.
That was 90?
Yeah.
I was just getting started.
And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com join and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John, come back.
Get ready for it. Get ready for it. The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Joining me now is Salman Rajput. He is running for Congress in Michigan's 12th district. He's running against a legendary political family, a dynasty. Debbie Dingell is the current Dingell in office there, but her husband was in office before her, and then his dad before that. And they've held that seat for 85 years. Solomon, on the other hand, is a medical student, and he says he's going to take it from her. So, welcome, Solomon. How you doing?
Hi, Cenk. So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, hit me, brother. What's your plan for toppling this one of the more amazing political dynasties in American history?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. They have held this seat for 85 years straight. It's something we actually really don't see in American politics almost ever. They're the longest American political dynasty that we've ever heard of. But the plan is that we are going to build a huge grassroots army of young people to go out there and talk to voters. The number one way to get someone to want to vote for a campaign and want to come out for a candidate is to go out there and talk to them, knock on their door, text them, make a phone call. And we've got 6 universities in our district. And we have so many students who are so excited to go out there and fight for progressive policies and progressive values. We've got the people, they've got the money, but people beats money every time.
Are you still a medical student, Solomon?
Yeah, I'm a medical student, but I'm on leave. So don't worry, I'm not trying to take care of patients and learn medicine at the same time as running for Congress.
Fascinating. So you put that on hold to run for Congress.
I did.
Is there anybody else in the primary?
There's someone else in the primary who has announced, but he has not gotten much traction. He doesn't have a website, but technically someone else has declared.
Got you. If you don't have a website, yes, it's hard to get traction. Okay, so how about the district? How blue is it?
Oh, this district is blue. Ann Arbor is one of the liberal bastions of the Midwest. It's home to the University of Michigan. It has tens of thousands of students. We have Ypsilanti, which is right next to Ann Arbor, also very progressive. Then we have Dearborn, which is the biggest Muslim population center in the United States of America. Very progressive place. This is a blue district, and that's why people are so confused as to why Representative Dingell is acting like a moderate Democrat, a corporate Democrat, who makes it sound like we just barely got this district back from Donald Trump in the 2018 midterms. This is not that kind of district. The Democrats always win every time. This is a very progressive district. Bernie Sanders took this district. The establishment candidate in the governor's race lost this district. This is a very progressive district, and we need a progressive representative who will fight for policies that we want in this district.
Solomon, what's more blue, the district or your sweater?
This is actually kind of a light blue, so I'm going to say that. I'm going to say my district is a lot bluer than this.
Okay, got it. By the way, you mentioned lots of Muslim Americans in the community. Are you Muslim, Solomon?
Yep, I'm Muslim American. Yep.
And did that, the immigrant story that your family lived through, did that affect your decision to run for Congress at all?
Well, when I was thinking about why I wanted to run, a lot of things were coming to my mind, and it's pretty crazy to me that in the biggest Muslim population center in the United States of America, we've never had a Muslim congressperson, we've never had a Muslim representative. And then the thing is, it's one thing to represent the biggest Muslim population center in the United States, but if you're not fighting for their issues, then why are you representing them? Unfortunately, Congresswoman Dingell took her name off of a pro-Palestine bill, a bill that would have, a very simple bill that would have simply said, we don't want to provide aid to any entity that is going to harm the human rights of Palestinian children. She put her name on that bill and took it off shortly thereafter, and we think it's because of moneyed interests. So we do need someone who will represent the interests of our district, and our district has many Muslim constituents. So they were very shocked and devastated to hear about Congresswoman Dingell retracting her name from that bill.
Yeah, well, I support treating Palestinians as humans. I'm not sure that that's overly
Wild idea.
controversial. Yeah. But apparently that is controversial in the United States Congress. Okay, so now I read your platform, so you are very progressive. In fact, are you willing to take the Progressive Economic Pledge?
I will be willing to take it right here, right now. I'm on webcam, so I don't know what I can sign, but I will take it right now. It's pretty much my whole platform is the Progressive Economic Pledge.
All right, that's great. So if you guys aren't aware, it's on tyt.com/pledge. And Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they've all signed it. And it just is very simple: Medicare for all, Green New Deal, college for all, anti-corruption, higher wages. Now, Solomon, that brings me to your challenge on Dingell, because she is good on some of those issues. She's described as a progressive in the local papers, and she did sign on for Medicare for all. So why primary her?
Great question. So it's actually really funny because when I'm going around and talking to constituents in our district, and I say, yeah, Debbie Dingell calls herself a progressive, everyone's like, oh, she's a progressive? Are you sure? And I'm like, that's what she says. I appreciate that Representative Dingell has put her name on the Medicare for All plan. However, that is essentially the extent of her progressive credentials. She doesn't support a Green New Deal. She doesn't support getting corporate money out of politics. She's taken over $1 million in corporate PAC donations from the villains of the Democratic Party, like ExxonMobil, Goldman Sachs. She doesn't support making college free or eliminating student debt in a district that has 6 universities, over 100,000 enrolled students. And at the same time, she just went on Fox News the other day and was talking about how she hasn't made up her mind yet on impeachment. She supported formalizing the impeachment inquiry, but she hasn't actually decided where she stands on impeachment. So at this point, you ask any progressive, those are pretty staple progressive measures. And for me, when I was thinking about what I care about, what people in this district care about, they care about all of those things. And if she's not going to be a champion on those issues, then someone has to. And if no one else was going to do it, then I said, okay, I'll do it.
Okay, and so, when you see things like being ambivalent on impeachment in a very blue district, it really makes almost no logical sense. So you wonder if there's something else behind it. So I assume, since you just said you were taking the economic pledge, that you don't take corporate PAC money.
No, I absolutely do not take any corporate PAC money. No corporation would want to give me money anyway because of all the policies that I want to go after, and I don't want to take any corporate PAC money anyway.
Right. Now, how about Representative Dingell? Do you know if she takes corporate PAC money and how much she takes?
Yeah, she takes a lot of corporate PAC money. It just essentially keeps rolling on in. Over $1 million in corporate donations since she started her election cycle in 2014. So she takes a lot of money. She takes money from health insurance companies too. That's why many people in our district are concerned about her commitment to Medicare for all, because she's taken tens of thousands of dollars from private health insurance companies. She takes money from fossil fuel companies. She takes money from a variety of other companies, the big banks. She has hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal fossil fuel investments. So she's a 85-year-old political dynasty. They're going to be tied to big money, and that's what she is.
Now I'll ask in my best feigned outrage mainstream media anchor voice. Are you saying that might affect her votes?
It's crazy to think that these big companies aren't giving out money willy-nilly. It certainly affects her ability to champion the issues that people in our district care about. People are begging her to sign on to the Green New Deal. We've had activists host sit-ins for every couple of weeks for months and months and months. And she hasn't taken a strong stand. She hasn't come out in support of the Green New Deal. People ask her point blank, why don't you support the Green New Deal? And she said, and this is on video too, she says, well, I don't want to go ban airplanes. If you have 10 minutes, you can read the 14-page long document that is the Green New Deal. You can even press Control F and search the word airplane, and it is not in there. There's nothing about banning airplanes. That's a Fox News talking point. So you have to wonder, this is a goal, the Green New Deal is a goal that will dramatically change our entire country in order to solve the slow motion catastrophe that is climate change. If fossil fuel companies would have their way, they don't want any part of that. And she's taking a lot of money from fossil fuel companies. So it leaves you to wonder what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of voters, the great majority of voters, have no idea how conservative a lot of the Democrats in Congress are. And that's because the mainstream media largely covers it up. And they say, no, everybody's on the same team, as if they all agree. But no, they don't agree. And yeah, it's because they take the money. I don't think it's that complicated. But I wanted to ask you, what's your campaign slogan?
It's "We're done waiting," actually.
Yeah, I liked it. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When I was thinking about what the political establishment is doing in this country, I mean, essentially during my entire lifetime, I can't really think of anything big that the government has done besides put us in 2 wars and enact Obamacare, which was an awesome step in the right direction. But healthcare remains the biggest issue to our citizens almost 10 years after it was passed. So we're done waiting for these corporate incremental baby step politicians to go out there and fight for the big changes that we need when they're not going to do it. We've asked them for so long, but they've ignored us, and we need to recognize that they're not going to wake up and start caring all of a sudden. So it's up to people, it's up to progressives to go out there and try to take this power back so we can actually enact the policies that our nation needs.
All right, the website is SolomonRajput.com. We'll have the links down below. If you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook, just click on them and check it out. Solomon, I couldn't wait to have you on.
I couldn't wait to be on.
I'm just trying to borrow from your slogan. That's how much I like it. All right, thanks for being on, brother. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cenk. It's been a pleasure.
All right, you too. All right, guys, we got the post game coming up. Me, Anna, and JR. New York stories, including from interactions with the very wealthy to interactions on the subway. Vastly different stories, but you're going to get all of it if you're a member. TYT.com/join to become one, and we'll see you there in a minute. All right, welcome post game. Cenk, Anna, and JR with you guys. I asked JR to stay so that I can get confirmation or non-confirmation on one part of one story.
Oh,
okay.
I'll take it.
So we'll start on the subway and then we'll work our way up to wealthy folks in New York. Okay, so that's for the trip that I just did. So I'll get right to it. Okay. First of all, when you're on the New York subway, it's always fascinating, interesting, horrible, wonderful experience, right? Totally. So the wonderful part is it's a little cold out. Anna would find that to be a dramatic understatement.
Yeah.
But
I was
still,
thinking that.
yeah, but still, I could walk around in this and I'm okay, right? Because I'm warm-blooded, I'm fine, and I love the fall and stuff. But you get down there, it's like a little warmer, which is good. In the summer, it's disastrous, but in the fall, it's great, right? And there's somebody playing cello or something, and it's like out of the movies, and it's lovely. And then you get on the subway, and everybody's like, they're so miserable, okay? And they just want to go home, but their home is so far away. It's the subway, they're so unhappy, okay? So anyway, and every once in a while, someone who's not mentally well comes on, right? So we have one of those situations.
That's what you look to avoid on the subway.
Yes. So I'm sitting here. I've got another large guy to my left. He's African American. He's got a headset on, but he can hear what's going on. So another guy walks in. He's also African American, and he starts, gesticulating wildly and speaking out and singing and stuff like that. So we immediately look at each other. Okay, me and the guy sitting next to me, and this happens a lot. And this is what I wanted to check with you on, JR. Okay, I think what's happening is we're looking at each other like, if shit goes down, we got to do something, right? So are we cool to do something? And that's that look. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think a friend of mine that I was in college with, he was a big guy, played football. And then so it was always those instances where he knew he was among everyone else at a situation. If something went down, people were gonna look at him and go, when are you gonna do something about this? And he's like, oh. So if you find another person who maybe everyone usually gives that look to you, like, maybe we can split this bill.
Yeah.
Because I don't wanna be the one.
We can split this bill, totally.
And he's told those kinds of stories, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think that's the unspoken code among big guys in dangerous situations, like, we got to do this, right? Yeah, if shit goes down, all right, okay, we'll work together. And so at first he came in kind of hot, right? The guy with issues, right? And that's why we looked at each other. But then he started singing more, and obviously he's still got the issues. It's not like pleasant singing or anything like that, but at least it's like not going in a bad direction, okay? And then so he looks at me again and smiles, and I smile, right?
He's like, we're off the hook.
Yeah, like kind of like that, and it's kind of funny, right? But again, I wanted JR here, to make sure it's not all in my head, right? This is what I think in those situations, and this is the interaction we're having, but we haven't said a word. And the guy starts singing more and more, and then the other guy looks at me and goes, tight.
He said that?
Yeah.
Tight?
Yeah, tight.
That's awesome.
It worked out. I used to take the transit here, mostly subway because I was in the valley and it was easy, and we worked over in another part of town, and I saw some things.
Yeah.
And even just as the subway is slowing down, it's still moving fast. You're always looking at each car like, crazy, no. Yeah, I'm that one.
Totally.
Not many people on that one. Just enough. You don't want to get an empty one because everyone else gets an empty one, and now you've flooded. You've lost your choice. So there was a guy on a bus. I transitioned from the subway to the bus. There's a guy. I was sitting maybe a third of the way back, normal bus, and there was a guy at the front. Again, this is Los Angeles, so it was nighttime, but it wasn't like cold. But he had a huge coat on, and I'm like. So I'm looking already. You guys know how I approach anything. I'm like, I just sit back. If there's not another guy to give the nod to, I just sit back and almost like slump, make sure no one can even see me. I'm just watching him. He stands right behind the bus driver at one point, several stops later, opens up his coat a little bit like this, and starts digging into his coat.
What did you do?
I'm just, so I'm near the, there's the middle exit door.
Slumping further and further down the seat. Yeah.
There's the middle, there's the middle door exit and there's the front door exit. So I'm like, am I going back or am I going forward?
But where are you gonna go? Like that's
the fuck off the bus.
Oh, you're on a bus. You're on a bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
You thought it was Subway.
Oh yeah, no, I transitioned to the bus.
Okay.
To the last part. So I'm on, and then so he pulls out a knife halfway out of his coat.
Oh my God.
It's not all the way out, and it is already this long.
Oh my God, what did you do?
I thought this story was gonna have a happy and then it turns out it's a flute. No, it actually, at least it's not a gun, but it was an actual knife. So then what happened?
It was a huge kitchen knife. It wasn't like a machete, but it was big enough where you're gonna cut something, you're doing this in the kitchen. So
what happened?
So I'm like, shit. I was like, so I can't not do anything. Also can't do anything because the bus driver has no idea who's behind and what he has. And I'm just like waiting for something to happen for a second. I can't act because the guy was a little bit off too. And he was just maybe checking his knife. I also didn't want to bring attention to it.
He was maybe just checking his knife.
He was. Well, every once in a while you gotta do a check. Oh yeah, giant knife. Yep, it's still there. Okay,
it was just hanging out in his jacket. So I'm like, maybe he's like, oh yeah, it's still here. He looked at it like, I was like,
do you still question why people like dogs more than people? Do you really, like, I see a dog on a train or a bus or any form of public transportation, I'm like, sweet little animal, right? I see a person with a giant coat taking a giant knife out, like, come on.
I know, but the flip side is, if I'm right about the non-spoken communication, there's also a little bit of nice humanity there, like where we decide, we're the ones who are gonna look out for folks.
Yeah, look, I have made a decision that I cannot rely on humanity to step in and protect me, okay? Yeah. I've come to that, like not everyone is you and the guy on that train, you know what I'm saying? Like.
And maybe where my problem is, I won't preemptively strike, and maybe someone will get hurt first. All that type of stuff. If something went down, I'm not gonna jump at this guy.
No way.
So people think, oh man, I'm gonna take care of the situation before it starts. Don't do that.
Don't do anything preemptive. That's really
because
dumb.
All I was doing was hoping he would not do anything, because you don't want anything to happen. I was like, I just hope. And then my stop came up like 3 stops there. I was like, good luck.
Good luck, everybody. The slumper's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, not move much. If there was another guy, we could have.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do when you're on the metro? So I guess that's the
see
equivalent.
Something, say something.
No, but seriously, like, so the metro is like the subway in New York, right? And I take the metro time to time. I used to take it a lot more, but the mental health issue in Los Angeles and the homeless issue has gotten so bad that you're really like taking a risk if you're traveling alone, right? So anyway, but like, what do you do if you're stuck in a metro car? You're underground, your phone doesn't work, there's no reception, and let's say some crazy person in there attacks you. Like, what do you do? Where do you go?
From your point of view, it's harder.
Yeah.
There was a guy again. Sorry, I'll make the story really fast. He happened to be in the same car as me. It looked like a Jerry curl type of hairstyle, but it wasn't really. And at one point, I act like people don't know that I know everything that's happening so that they won't spy in on me. And I catch him corner of my eye looking at me. And he has a bottle of liquid Vaseline, like liquid version of Vaseline, like.
Well, how do you run into these guys? Maybe we all run into them, but we never notice them. Except JR's watching everyone. JR's like Big Brother. Okay.
And he's like sitting forward, like on his elbows on his knees, looking at me like this. And he has this bottle of Vaseline, and he's running in his hand, like filling up the palm of his hand and going, oh my God, rubbing it all over in another handful. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And I'm like I catch it doing, I was like, and he's looking at me like this.
Is he getting ready for Turkish oil wrestling or something?
What's going on, right? So
is he gonna try to fit his head into something he can't fit it into?
I'm just glad he was slathering it all over that head.
Yeah, it's startling. It's some startling thing to see.
It sounds like the beginning of a Bruters movie.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It's some startling shit to see. So at that point, I used my privilege, which you maybe couldn't use. And I look, because usually, like I said, I won't let anybody know I'm looking, but I looked right back at him. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and have this, because I can't go anywhere, the subway's moving. So then I just turned and looked at him, and I was like,
no, totally, but.
So we're gonna stare the fuck down and find out which one of us is ready, right?
Which one of us is ready? Well, that dude is ready, man. He's got the Vaseline, his head's ready to go wherever it's going.
I'm thinking people who are looking for something to go down want an easy target, not someone who's gonna tell them, you don't want this one, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying to give him that without saying it.
Yeah.
And it worked to a point, because then he looked away, he got uncomfortable. It's like a staring contest, and eventually he go, man, I don't know what he's thinking. Like, no, that guy's crazy. So then we got to a stop.
This is the stuff that goes inside our heads. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. So at the next stop, since he looked away, I stayed there for a while. Doors opened, then I popped up and moved. And then the doors were already closing, and he looked. I saw him on the train looking around like, fuck, where'd he go?
What a weirdo, wow.
Get out of here.
No,
Look,
but you're
like,
right.
I felt a little bit, and it's so weird, I felt a little bit like a chump for leaving the situation, but I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this.
No, you did the right thing. I read this, the New York Daily News the next day. Man tries to put his head inside someone's anus.
Oh my God, oh my God.
On the subway. JR was this close to being the victim of the brutal.
So I will say this, I think that you're obviously gonna be a little more confident in using that method, right?
But it sucks.
And it does suck, but I use that method too.
Okay,
oh, really?
Yeah, because like my play has been, and this happens more on like when I'm walking and there's like someone who seems suspicious to me and they're like staring and I'm worried, I don't know. The trick is to make them think you're crazier than they are, right?
Absolutely.
And like, if you show them, if you're staring them right in the eye, then you're telling them like, I'm not gonna go down without a fight. If you look away and you're all timid, because I'm like small,
I'm amused by the idea of some TYT fan is like, is that Anna? And she's like, yeah, come and get some, bitch, right? And then Anna takes out some Vaseline.
Always keep Vaseline.
There we go. I like the idea that from now on, anytime anything's gonna go down. Get that head ready. You don't know where it's going.
Yeah, even if you got chapstick, just use it. Just rub it.
Oh my God. That is such a great story. You had it in your back pocket. I'm glad you shared it.
It was right there in the back.
It was so long ago. It was like 12 years ago.
So you remember last time I'm sure I told it on Postgame back then. Last time I was in New York, I was in the subway and it stopped. And I was disastrously late for a meeting. It stopped for like 15, 20, 30 minutes. I don't remember exactly how long. And but that's not why I'm bringing up the story, because the reason why. So they do the announcement. We're gonna be stuck here for a little while between stops because someone's bleeding out in the train in front of us. Someone's bleeding out in the C train. Like, welcome to New York.
Jesus. Like they don't have to give those details.
I know, right? Yeah. We got somebody bleeding out on the C train, everybody. This is gonna take a while.
That lifestyle, it's not for me. It's for other people.
It's for other people. All right, meanwhile, in the same city, I went to a fancy conference. It's wonderful. I don't want to speak badly of it at all, and I don't want to give any specific details because it's off the record, okay? And I'm lucky to have been invited. It has media executives, it has some financial institutions, et cetera, right? And all the big dogs were there. So that's why I triple checked my invitation, literally. I was like, there's some chance they sent this to the wrong Cenk Uygur, right? And so, but having talked to the folks in that room and having heard the presentations and the like little smattering of political conversations, like, whoa. So first of all, what's interesting is, actually, let me note that almost all of them are, at least the ones that I talked to and the ones I heard from. Now it's a little self-selection because everybody knows I'm progressive. Everybody in the room knows that, right? But still, almost all of them are Democrats. So the stereotype you have in your head of the rich Republicans, yeah, of course they exist, and they're more disproportionately represented because they're bigger donors. Like, but a lot of the wealthy are Democrats. So now then, who are they for? Not close. Overwhelmingly Biden, it's gotta be Biden, right?
Yeah.
And they think it's gotta be Biden and it's gonna be Biden. That's their belief. But now they're scared. Not of Sanders. They think he doesn't exist. Like they think he's a madman, like absolute, like just wild-eyed madman. But they find it, the idea that he would be president, preposterous and unthinkable, right? But they think he's down and out. They're wrong about that. You know, he's number one in Nevada, number one in New Hampshire. Those are two out of the top four. Two out of the 4 earliest states to vote. That's why they make such a difference. And he's been surging. And the Onion had a great headline. Bernie Sanders plummets to first place in New Hampshire.
So good.
Picks up. I don't remember the rest of it, but it was hilarious. Anyways, but so why are they scared? Not of Bernie. They think he's done. Warren. And they're like, now it's beginning to dawn on them. Remember, I said all along, the minute they think one of these two can win, there's going to be panic, and the panic has begun. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. They're like, I mean, not Warren, right? Not Warren.
I assume they see Bernie Sanders as the cartoon character and Warren as a candidate that people can take seriously.
Yes.
And she's saying similar things. So like, oh my God, this is a scary situation. And she's a woman because we thought Hillary was going to win last time. She's the new Hillary, but she's not a uber establishment Hillary. So, oh my God, this is a possibility. That's why they're afraid of her. And she goes hard with the Wall Street stuff, and everyone, that's the calling card for her.
Yeah.
The calling card for Bernie Sanders is the social, the work rights and the healthcare stuff. But her calling card is, I'm gonna kick these Wall Street executives' ass all over the place, like you've seen me do on TV several times.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, I don't wanna be that guy.
Yeah.
Who's the one crying, Cooperstown?
Leon Cooperman. I will never forget that name because he has brought so much joy to my life.
You're crazy. Anyway, they really, and usual stuff, they think the rich have it tough and that.
Oh yeah. They have
and
real
but that's a little bit.
Bill Gates said the same
They don't
thing.
know when they're gonna be able to put the next meal on the table for their kids. Really tough for them.
Do you remember Latrell Sprewell? He caught so much shit. I feel like his career was over. He played for the Knicks, NBA player back in the 90s and the early 2000s. And there was some kind of contract dispute or like he had a contract and he wanted to either opt out of it or he wanted to re-sign somewhere, or it was something like he wanted more money because he was balling. And he was talking about how frustrating it is that he can't get them to re-sign or give him this extra whatever. And he goes, how am I supposed to feed my family?
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my God.
And he was making probably, a couple million a year. This is in the late 90s. How am I supposed to feed my family? I mean, the media, the fans, the ownership, the coaches, anybody jumped on Latrell and was like, how dare you say that? You're a millionaire, and like went crazy on him. And I remember thinking, well, in comparison to the people who are paying him, he's not making that much money. So I got that part. So today when Bill Gates decided to say, and he said he was joking afterwards, if they tax me anymore, I don't know what's left. That's the same thing, except this guy's a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
And you know what the audience was doing?
Thank you.
Stop.
And part of it is the assumption of like, Latrell, you're lucky to get any money because of who you are. And so how dare you complain about that you're getting a couple of $1 million.
Yep. Anyway, sorry.
So I went to,
that annoyed the hell out of me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I went to a dinner with a smaller group of really good guys and women. By the way, the conference was overwhelmingly white male. A couple of African Americans, couple of South Asians, couple of Asians, and I don't know if they hit 20% women, right? But it was a sea of white men. That's just the reality, right? They're inviting the people who are successful in that industry, and still that's the demographic. But anyway, went to a group that was much more diverse. We went to dinner, good guys and stuff. So then we did a poll there of who do you want to win, right? And who do you think is going to win? And even in that group, 2/3 thought Biden was going to win, 2/3 wanted Biden to win. There was a couple of Buttigiegs,
of course, yeah.
And there were like almost a third Warren. Okay.
Okay.
So and these are not
Did
uber
anyone
wealthy.
say Bernie?
So just to clarify, these are not uber wealthy. These are
these are normal people.
No, some of them attended the conference. They're not poor, right?
Okay.
But they're not like the uber wealthy. They're not the mega folks, etc.
Yeah.
And they're good, solid liberals from New York and other places too. But anyway, but so a third was Warren. So I was kind of, I thought that was a good sign. Like it wasn't completely no Warren, no Sanders, right? Because even in that subgroup, it's still a little bit more, even though they're really good guys, it's still the bubble of the establishment, right? I bet you that if we talked to them for a while, 2/3 of them would be Warren, okay? Not one Sanders.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want me to comment on this? Like, I just.
I don't know that I do.
Yeah,
Because Anna right now is doing this.
Yeah, you're like, everything that you've said about that experience has only made me irritable. So I just like, so I'm just gonna do like this very rare thing where I'm just gonna hold back a little bit and not comment.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Good news is they don't have to be in support of somebody that can actually appeal to more voters. Again, I've always said this when we talk about we're supposed to care about the tax rates of the uber rich. Why don't they care about the tax rates of the middle class and lower class folks?
No, the
Why don't
thing
they care about our
that
tax rates?
like drove me nuts this week was when both Leon Cooperman and Jamie Dimon whined about the vilification of rich people. Fuck off. Really?
That was a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah, oh, do you feel vilified? What about the working class that's been vilified forever in America?
As bums, lazy,
Yeah.
they didn't
Entitled.
earn it,
Who
they
cares
didn't work
about
hard.
that?
Bankers work hard, you don't work hard.
Yeah.
Right, it was your fault that you're not wealthy, etc. That vilification perfectly fine.
Literally vilifying people who are so desperate they end up in shelters, they end up on the streets, they can't feed their kids. Those are the ones who are worthy of vilification. But the people who are literally just fucking hoarding their wealth, no, you can't say anything negative about us because we need to engage in the dick measuring contest of wealth, right? That's what it is. That's all it is. It's all about ego. It's unbelievable.
And we've held that narrative over your head long enough that unless you support us and support our wealth, you can't get any of it. It's gonna come down to you if you continue to make us happy, and this shit never happens. You know, Brian Kilmeade last week, and also Tucker Carlson months and months ago, they talk about homeless all the time. I think Kilmeade said, we interviewed this homeless man who said he just loves to party. And that was their profile about, he said, being homeless
loves to party.
Being homeless is the best thing that ever happened to him, and that's what goes on.
Everyone likes to fucking party, okay?
Yeah.
Let's just put that out there. But like, yeah, the way that they mischaracterize the homeless.
So vilifying the homeless isn't a problem for some reason, but vilifying the rich, you know, if I'm a millionaire, a billionaire, and you go, J.R. Jackson's a piece of shit asshole, I'd be like, that's right. You can give it all to me. I still got billions of dollars. Why are you so hurt over somebody talking about you?
You know why they're hurt? Because they don't live in the real world. Like they live in the world where people laugh at the jokes that they're not even telling, right? So when someone criticizes them, it's like a punch in the face. It's like, wait, what's going on? Everyone around me has been telling me that I'm God's gift to humanity.
Yeah.
Like why is anyone saying why are people saying that I deserve to pay more in taxes? But that's not what I've been told by all these lawmakers throughout my life, by all the people that surround me all my life. Anyway,
I'm better than these
on.
people. They can't talk to me like this.
Yeah.
All right, well then I'll give you end on a positive note. But there were a couple of folks in the room who were wonderful progressives. Now they're undercover, okay, because they don't fit the groupthink. But I got into a little bit of a heated conversation, and one of the guys that was on the opposite side turned to the other guy like, hey, are you with me? And he was like, no, I'm coming for you. And so it turns out he's like, no, I think he's actually kind of right, okay? And then I talked to a couple other guys, not a lot, but some super progressives in the room too. So that's why I don't make generalizations. It's not, you know, they have groupthink. I don't want us to have groupthink, right? And look, I'll just give one quick story of a guy who's said to me, who's very, very wealthy, why isn't my tax rate 70%? This is outrageous. When are we gonna finally do something about income inequality? I was like, okay, all right, that exists too, okay?
And it's not just for the sake of the working class or the middle class, it's for the sake of the rich too.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you don't want to get to a point where the masses feel like they have nothing left to live for.
Yeah,
right?
well, then because that's at that point is when they want to party.
That's when the pitchforks come out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that they think that we do want that. We don't want that. I don't want to live in a world where I go outside and everybody's.
No, because they've been setting you up to not want to do that. They tell you you're un-American if you decide to even say anything.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, view from another bubble. Thought I'd share it with you guys. All right, we'll see you on the power panel and more.
I care. That's it. You can't let that happen to me.